Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third day of the festival. We've got a really action-packed programme for you this morning. We're going to be looking at business, at economic growth, of our digital future, and the future shape of the workforce. If that's not enough to excite you, then this is a festival where the action's really at. This is a festival where all of the toilets are still working, there's still plenty of food, so we're going to have a great morning.
We are going to hear about the opportunities for innovation and the support available for small businesses. And if that wasn't enough, we have some students here from Bovington Academy who are undergoing a design and build challenge from MURAL. So let's go to Peter to hear a little bit more about that.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. I'd like to introduce you to a few people over here, including Spot the dog, but you'll get more of Spot later. First of all, Steve, and you're going to talk to us about the company that he runs and the things that he does, which is really interesting. But we're going to go over and say hello to the kids first. So we've got some young ladies and some young gentlemen from Bovington Academy who are here today having a look at everything. I'm just going to go around and find out who you are. So what's your name, young man?
My name is Aidan.
Aidan. What's your name, young lady? Eva. Evie. Thank you very much, Evie. What's your name?
Julie.
And Julie, are you the head girl? Yes. We've got the head girl here. What's your name?
Willis.
Willis, as in Bruce. Yes, there was a smile there. Can you see me with it? What's your name, young man?
Me?
Yes, you.
Sebastian.
Sebastian. And what's your name?
Oh, Nabina.
Nabina. Nice to meet you. These guys have come from Bovington Academy. They're going to have a great day today. They've got their young lady teacher, Pasha, who I met for the first time this morning. Pasha is really looking forward today. She's been at Bovington Academy for 2 weeks. She moved up from Devon with her other half, who's actually working for the army in Bovington, and is very, very excited by today. We've got Sarah, who is working for Dorset Council, who will help me and will correct me if I say anything wrong. So that's going to happen quite soon. But first of all, can I go to you, Steve? Can I get you to talk through your fantastically interesting products?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work at a company called MURAL. MURAL is a global technology company. We help large organizations around the world, and particularly the people in those companies, to collaborate visually in a, you can kind of call it a post-pandemic world, but maybe we won't get into that topic. So what we're doing with the children today is I'm trying to impress upon them the importance of the fundamentals of what they do at school today. Storytelling, of visual creativity, drawing pictures, expressing themselves visually. Because believe it or not, that's what I do every day at work. That's what the people I work with do every day, all in service of how we work together. So what we're doing with the children today, they were set a little pre-work activity, a little homework, to imagine a future educational environment, a future school, to pick a thread, whether it's about the social aspects, the educational aspects, the mindfulness and well-being aspects, and to imagine what that future can be, and to come and bring their sketches on pieces of paper. And we've just gone through and they've told stories about the things that inspired them to create their designs. What we're going to do today, as you can see, we've got 3 of the children here with Oculus Quest headsets on. We're going to jump into VR, and I'm going to show them the next step of that visual collaborative experience. We're all going to be in a virtual environment together using Meta Horizon Worlds. I'm going to teach them the fundamentals of world building. We will also have the children there explaining their vision, and we're going to start to bring some of those visions to life by building aspects of their designs in virtual reality.
Thank you, Steve. That's really interesting, and I know the children will find it very interesting. We're going to come back later and we're going to ask Steve questions about what you've learned from the kids, which will be interesting, and we're going to be asking the kids what they've learned about all of the things that they'll be looking at today. Plus, we'll be talking to Spot the dog, and we'll be asking questions about Spot the dog from Dave, who was here, who's from the army, who's responsible for it. If at any point during the day you're watching this and you want to make a comment, it's on YouTube, we're live streaming it, and there is an opportunity for you to ask questions if you're somewhere else, not here. So go on YouTube, find us, and then put the questions in. we'll log the questions and we'll answer them just as soon as possible. So thank you very much for that. And John, I think I'm now handing back to you, am I not?
Thanks
John?
very much indeed, Peter. Yes, I'm on the festival sofa with our first two guests of the morning, with Mel from Adapt Digital and Matt from Equal Experts, both of whom are very closely involved in the digital agenda. And of course, over recent years, we've all had to adapt to that new way of working. I've certainly spent time, as you'll be aware, working from home, some joy, some less so. We've seen cats and dogs and all kinds of things that people have at home. People have admired my kitchen, which is always great. But I think the question that's in all our minds is this the shape of the future?
It's an interesting part. I think that we should think about the way in which work is changing as just sort of constant evolution. And I don't think we will go back to how things were before the pandemic, but I think many organisations, it wasn't that big a change. I think for big global organisations, people have been used to working in virtual environments with teams who are distributed across the whole globe. I think it was probably more of an impact for smaller, more local businesses. I was working at the time for a housing association, and it was a big jump for the office-based people as to going from working in the office day in, day out for people to be working at home. What it really brought home, though, is about half our workforce were already working remotely. We had caretakers, we had people working in care homes. And one of the big benefits, actually, we found was that all of that group, half the employee base, suddenly felt much more connected because it was now not assumed that the only important people were the people in the office. So, you know, there's a whole load of things that have started to emerge. I think we're really at the foothills now, though, of what comes next. And we need to be able to start getting people to shift from thinking, how can we make it like it was, but in, you know, digital spaces, whether that's Teams or Zoom or Mural or whatever else, and actually start to think about how can we work better given that the technology in that allows us to be able to work in different ways. So not seeing it as the poor cousin, but rather actually this is opening up a huge new wealth of opportunities for how we operate as businesses and how people work and interact with one another.
And Mel, for you, a quantum shift or a developmental change?
Well, I think the thing about what's happened through, you know, the COVID years is for us not to think about it that it's created change, is that it's been an accelerant. So it was inevitable anyway. And I think it's really important for us all to know that. And it gives us a sense of calm that we can, you know, perhaps manage it and navigate it with a bit more courage and bravery. And I think also there's something else here which is fundamental. Yes, I'm absolutely with Matt. We ourselves have been a digital organisation for 10 years. We've been working remotely all over the world, and it's been fantastic. But there's a lot of our customers that this has actually been a little bit of a shift. And trying to navigate what hybrid is, I think there's two probably fundamental things that we need to be aware of. The first thing is that there's a mindset shift that's needed here. And we're at a point now where organisations that were traditionally in that office space, in that office culture prior to COVID, might now be falling back into the old habits. So how do we help people to create new habits and look to the future as opposed to trying, you know, maybe sort of naturally going back to the old habits of going back into the office space? And I guess the second thing for me, so the first one is mindset. And the second thing is to think about three spaces. There is an office space, there is a remote space, there's also a digital space, and seeing the benefits of those three spaces.
Thank you. Could you just pick up a couple of those 2 points, actually? So for me, the point about the mindset, absolutely critical. My digital colleagues always say to me, John, it's not the technology. The technology can do anything that we want it to do. What we need is, it's the people end of it. Have we got that side right? Are we training and skilling people sufficiently? Are we supporting them? Certainly I've been very conscious with our workforce in the council. We've worked really hard to try and make sure that they've felt as well supported working remotely as we're able to do when we've got them working in greater physical proximity to us. But that human challenge, I think, is perhaps a critical issue.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme throughout my career, although I've worked for 30 years now in technology mostly. I'm a social scientist by background, and so my framing has always been, actually, it's, you know, the technology is the relatively easy part. It's the people where the challenges lie. I think that there's a couple of things for me that are key. The first is about the role that leadership has to play in organisations to help set the kind of agenda for what is acceptable or not. And so being able to show the sorts of behaviours that they're expecting within others. And then the other part of this is, I don't think you can really, you can train people to use tools, you can train people to use Microsoft Teams or whatever else, so that very rarely does that happen now. The tools are relatively intuitive. But it's about how groups work together and actually enabling people to be able to have the time and space so that they as teams can learn how to be able to be quite explicit about how they are going to work and be able to ensure that they are communicating about their ways of working rather than just assuming that everybody knows what's happening, because this is new to us all. And so you need to have a layer of communication going on that sometimes feels a bit unnatural about how are we working, as well as what is the work that we're doing. And I think that sometimes gets lost with the assumption that it's, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it can break down as a result.
Yeah. Mel, could you just pick up that point about different workplaces and spaces? And again, just connecting back to what Matt was saying about so much of this is about behavioural. How do you see that shaping up in the future?
Well, I think I just want to pick up on something that Matt said just to answer that question, which is the role that leaders play in this. And I think an awful lot of organisations at the moment are trying to understand what does hybrid mean for us. And, my call to arms for leaders is to be careful of the questions that we're asking. And it's not so much asking how often should people be in the office versus remote. The question is when and how and why should people be together? When and how and why is it the right time for somebody to be working at home? And, we can all go on Google and, look at hybrid frameworks and so on and so forth and models. And I don't think that there is any one solution that fits all. What we ought to be doing is really understanding what fits for the unique individual and the team and the department and then the entire system. So for me, a little bit radical. I don't think we should be saying, is it 3 days a week that everybody should be in the office versus 2 days? That's the wrong question. So what questions are our leaders asking is probably the call to arms that I'd put out there.
Matt, you were nodding vigorously. We have a little adage we talk about work is an activity, not a place, but that change you respond to.
For quite some years, when I've been working with groups of people to be able to help understand how they adopt collaborative technologies and the like, a very simple question that I've asked people has been, where do you work? And you can learn an awful lot about a group of people and their mindset from that. And if I think of asking that question maybe 5 years ago, the response would often be, I work in Bournemouth, or I work in an office, or I work in an industry, so I work in local government. And there'd be some people who'd say things that were a bit more esoteric, like, I work wherever I need to, or I work in my head, or I work at home. I think now you're starting to see people answering that question in ways that are much more complex, because it's become more complicated about the physical place being separated from the mental space being separated from the digital space. They are all kind of spaces. It's just that we've sort of tied so much around, particularly office working over the last 150 years, as to being you have to go to a physical place to do that because the machines to do the work are there. And the machines have been let out for over a decade or more now. But that's a lot for people to get in. It's things about identity and around how people feed off the energy of others and so on. I think one other really important point though is there is a bit of a generational thing where if you're of an age where you are in a privileged position where you have space, as in a home, then working at home is a viable proposition. If I think back to my early 20s when I was in house shares in London, the idea of being able to work from home with that bunch is, it's just unfeasible. And we had some very challenging things in my last role with people who were dealing with really quite emotionally harrowing calls from tenants about challenges and problems they were facing, and doing that from their bedroom and not being able to have a physical break from the place that they were having to do that to the place that they then had to go to sleep. And that, at an emotional level, there's a generational thing there we've really got to be able to take consideration of as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that experience of how we support a workforce in those difficult situations, particularly when they're working remotely, it was a real challenge to all of us. Mel, just want to project forward. Matt was talking about that, and I had that sort of experience. Kind of, what was it like when I first started? And I worked in my first job in local government. The office I was in, we had one computer on every desk, and we were thought to be hugely privileged because we were the only team in the whole council that had that. And it was a machine with floppy disks, I hasten to add. So that dates me and dates the experience. But where that takes me is the thought about where is all this taking us in the future, because we know that the pace of technology is advancing, all those clever things about the growth in computer power and transmission of information and so on. So where do you think this is going to take us in terms of the workforce of the future? We're obviously bringing Gen Z into the workforce. These are people with very different views about work and what they want to see from it, and how they want to, how they view reward. How do you think that impacts with the digital world?
There's a few things there, and I guess the way that you opened up today's conversation about, you know, the human aspect of this is critical. I think one of the things that has been wonderful, certainly in my work as a mindset coach, is that people have leaned into who they are, you know, as opposed to what they do. And we're seeing that the younger generations are coming into the workplace and not necessarily saying, this is the what I do skills that I'm contributing to this organisation, but this is the purpose and the values that I want to bring into the contribution of this organisation. So I think that, you know, the values side and the purpose-driven side of organisations in terms of our identity, who we are as well as what we do, is a really important element. And how that plays into digital is beautiful because, you know, we're in a time of technological maturity where if something is an efficient task, i.e. it's repetitive, it's consistent, it's transactional, give it to a machine. And if it's inefficient, it's creativity, it's innovation, it's thought, it's collaboration, it's relational, then that's the space for the humans. So I actually think there's, you know, some possibility, a lot of potentiality here, to be fair.
That's really powerful because I think it's often said, isn't it, perhaps incorrectly so, that digital is the sort of Fordization of the office workplace. Matt, you're shaking your head. Let's challenge that a bit.
There's definitely risks of that, and I think that one of the downsides of information technology over the last 20 or 30 years has been that we've seen reintroduction of some thinking of, you know, there's this whole idea of scientific management, that you can manage organisations like you manage machines. This was at the core of what Ford did. And it wasn't until sort of the 60s, 70s, maybe into the 80s, where actually management thinking started to really challenge that idea, because it's demotivational. If you give people only small parts of work where they can't see what the outcome of any of it is, they get bored, they get, you know, demotivated. I think one of the things that the opportunity from technology will give us is to be able to really start to push out ideas about established custom of what work is. So we've got a mass experiment at the moment going on with 4-day weeks. So organisations who are switching to paying people the same amount of money but only expecting them to be able to be working for 4 days. I was speaking to somebody recently who's a guy called Perry Timms, who's an HR consultant. He's got a business around him. It's not just him. They went to a 4-day week in the pandemic, and they've seen an incredible increase in their productivity because people are more motivated, they are doing more work in less time, which is counterintuitive, but it's the way these things can pan out sometimes. The organisation I work for, we're a software development business, and if I'm honest, if it had just been any software development business, I probably wouldn't have gone there. The thing that was the draw for me is that we have no management hierarchy. We're an organisation of 300 staff. I don't have a line manager. I don't have performance reviews. I don't have targets. I'm held to account by the fact I deliver work for our clients, and I am responsible for making sure the teams that I have working on the client's work are happy. So it's not that I'm, you know, just swanning around, but I don't have to deal with all that stuff that was just increasingly grinding me down around the way in which traditionally organisations have worked, with a boss who reports to another boss. And all this stuff is viable without the technology that we have, but I think it's easier to be able to experiment and change how we think about working with technology because we have the opportunity to be more flexible in how we're operating.
Yeah. Mel, you were talking about leadership and the importance of leadership in that space. Very struck by what Matt said about that kind of turning organisational culture on its head and that sort of traditional hierarchies being challenged and different approaches to how we motivate our workforce. Again, do you want to perhaps reflect further on that issue about where leadership plays into this?
Absolutely. There's something for me very much in terms of the modern leader. What does the modern leader look like? And certainly for me, I think it's less about leaders by label being, experts of domain, but being generalist. We were talking about that before we came live on camera, didn't we? It's not so much about being jack of all trades, but can we be expert generalists? And I think what that means is it brings into the idea of relational management, energy. So taking away that sense of command and control, taking away and relinquishing and just letting go of micromanaging. But there are certain elements that we need to do here. To be a good modern leader, we need operating models and structures that map to that and align to that. So not the organisational structure that you can see on a PowerPoint slide that looks like a triangle, but something that looks flatter but not completely flat. We still need the decision making. We still need accountability. So I think, the modern leader, the human side of modern leadership is certainly something that all leaders need to be leaning into and committing to. As I often say, the soft skills of old are the power skills of the new world. Very much.
Yeah, but it's just worth exploring a bit further, perhaps, is that thing, pick up, Matt, the point you were making a moment ago, around a world where the distinction between workplace and home life are perhaps more blurred and not narrower than they were historically. A lot of the technology, of course, that we're using very actively in the workplace is becoming familiar in home life as well. And I think you made the point about a lot of the technology being intuitive, and of course a lot of that is coming through the fact that intuitively we're using this in our own personal lives, and therefore using it in the workplace is not a different skill, it's part of our, in a sense, our life experience.
I think that one of the, actually it's not been talked about much, but I think one of the ways in which the pandemic actually accelerated a lot of this stuff wasn't because people were using things for work, but because all of a sudden it became socially acceptable for people to use Zoom or Teams or whatever to do social things. So, I think sadly a couple of people I know passed away during the time of the pandemic, and the idea 4 years ago that there would have been a live stream of their funeral on Zoom is nuts. People would have just gone, that's really weird, that's morbid, that's strange, that's odd. Now I know that that's become something that people can understand why there's value in that, because people have become familiar with it, and it means that there is more connection. And I've seen, since, I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to see people die around me, sadly, but people now, this is becoming de rigueur, so that people who wouldn't be able to attend can now be there. But similarly, my social circle of friends who I've known from my school years and from my 20s, we don't think anything now of saying, should we get together on Zoom for a pub night tonight, in a way that, again, it would have been weird. Yeah. But that social use and that outside of work use then feeds through. And you see this a lot with the adoption of technology. It's often a point where people become familiar outside of the pressure of work, that they're unable to be able to use it in work. Years back, I heard a story from the early 90s of a law firm where there was a real lack of interest from the senior partners about using email, because they didn't see the point in it. It's some sort of flippant toy that they saw. And then somebody in the law firm set up an email list to be able to give updates of the test match score. And that was the thing that enabled the senior partners to realise they could both keep up to date with the test match and have a charging in 6-minute increments call with the client at the same time. And that was the thing that unlocked it. It wasn't training, it wasn't having some sort of great strategy for the business benefits of. It was something that would probably have half of the IT department saying, don't do that, that's not proper work use of the thing. Yeah. And you still see that kind of attitude, not using things for non-work purposes, and yet that's the way in which people get to be familiar and comfortable with these tools.
Yeah, and that wider societal change, Mel, I think that's that wonderful examples that Matt gives. I think that funeral one is particularly poignant, something that is so personal, so emotional, so challenging. and now in a way perhaps would be regarded as disrespectful when that was first talked about, now is regarded as being something you would do out of respect to enable those people who perhaps were overseas or not able to travel could participate in a very important family event. So again, just Mel, that thought about where is this taking us? What is going on? What do we see those wider societal trends as being that will perhaps enable us to further step forward on a better application use of technology?
I think that people, purpose and planet, that's a very simple answer. To unlock that, it's probably another conversation for another day, but certainly I think we're at a time now where we're recognising that the walls and the silos of old, we can't hang on to them. We have to let go of them. We have to work systemically. We have to understand the system, the ecosystem, not the ego system of so much of what people have experienced in latter years in business and work. So I think, whether we're public sector or private sector, I think being involved in the community, being more purpose-driven, being more people-driven, and therefore more planet, driven in terms of our awareness and our sustainability, our servitude to the planet is really, really important. And all of those things feed into the younger generations coming in. It's how we can attract talent. It's not through what you know, it's also about who you are, what you can actually bring as a human being to the organisation. So I think for me, it's those three things. That's where it's all heading, which is, but of course, with everything, there is a shadow side as well. And I think one thing that we haven't spoken about today, which I think is really important, is, the loneliness, the psychological safety side. There is a shadow side to all of this that an awful lot of people have experienced, and that's something really palpable for a lot of people. So the digital inclusion agenda is also an important part of this wider conversation.
And it's that sort of odd juxtaposition that we see in so many things in life, that there's a marvellously good, sort of wonderful opportunity to use digital technology for good, for advancement and betterment. Equally well, of course, it's a tool that can be used in a negative way, and I think that's a real challenge for us as a society.
Yeah, I think that the way in which we make decisions about what and how we use things, there is within the technology industry, the tech industry is completely shaped by the thinking of a very small number of people who aren't particularly diverse on the west coast of the United States. And most of the products that they develop are essentially developed for west coast software companies. And so there's a whole bunch of cultural things that are assumed about ways of working that are imposed through things like Teams or through Slack or whatever else, which I don't know that sometimes we're not calling out enough to be able to say, well, actually, we don't do it like that, and we shouldn't have to do it like that because we're not that sort of organisation.
And is the answer to that in the consumer power? In that, we are ultimately the consumers of these things. We have that choice. If we don't like what we're seeing, then we can use that with our voting power.
I think it's a bit of that, but I think it's also to be just aware of this stuff. And I guess, as I say, as a social scientist who spent his entire career working in technology, there aren't many people who've got either the people side, so they're not scared of the technology, or the technology side, but don't get scared of the people bit. And actually being able to have hybrid people involved in how we use technology at work to be able to make sure that it's thought of more broadly than just it's about the tech or it's about people change. I think there's probably something at the core of that's possibly the answer. But I would say that because that's what I spent my career.
Right. No, that's really good. I'm going to give the final word to Mel, if I may. Mel, let's go over your thoughts on that difficult, thorny issue as we close.
Yeah, I think for me, it's to think less about the skills that we need and think about the relationships, because relationships make good business, not the best skills.
That's a very powerful note to end on. Thank you for that. Thank you both. It's been a pleasure. I'm now handing over to Phoebe, who's going to take us through the next section. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. We're now going to play you a video.
So welcome to Tracy Keogh, founder of Grow Remote, to Festival of the Future. So thank you for joining us this year. This morning we've been talking about the changing workplace, particularly following the pandemic and people wanting greater flexibility. But you were ahead of the game in that, weren't you, back in 2018?
We were. So my name is Tracy, and I'm co-founder of a nonprofit called Grow Remote. And we started off in 2018 when we were, a little bit crazy in our idea. And what we had found is that remote work was being talked about everywhere as a way that could really help our local communities, but we weren't seeing it on the ground. So we were like, okay, where's the gap? Like, why is there marketing departments talking about this, but we're not seeing it? And at the time we had about 400 now we have about 400 co-working spaces in Ireland, but at the time they were just popping up everywhere, but they weren't full. And it wasn't for lack of trying. So we were like, okay, well, again, where's the problem? And then, long story short, then we ended up where we are today, that nobody meant to build, anything really, but we just kept going in that vein.
I mean, there's lots of terms that are used for flexible, agile, hybrid working. We're talking specifically today about remote working, and you've got kind of a nice definition for that. So how would you describe remote working?
Yeah, so we were at the world's largest remote working conference there this year in Canada, and at that there were people who were in the remote working space since 2018 and before, and the conversation came up, what is hybrid and what is remote work? So this is everybody. But for us, in terms of the economic and social impact that we want to drive using this, we mean location agnostic employment, which is kind of wordy. It basically means that decent jobs that come with pension, sick pay, etc., that you're used to only being advertised in an urban location are advertised with no location, and they will be ring fenced to either a tax jurisdiction or a time zone. So I would ask the question first, even though I know this is recorded so nobody can answer me, but maybe, I'm not sure if I told you this yesterday though, so you might know the answer, but how many remote jobs are open in Dorset today?
I have no idea.
And you
I wouldn't even know where to go to look, to be honest. So
yeah, exactly. So there are 80,000. There are 80,000 jobs that are advertised with no location, and so they can be in Dorset or they can be where I live in the Burren. And the difference is how well we educate our local communities in just what remote work is and where to find it, because they're in different spaces. As I said to you yesterday, LinkedIn and Indeed did not allow people to advertise remotely up until a year ago. You had to put in a city centre location. So organisations like ours, who would hire wherever the best talent is, weren't actually able to. So they went into different boards and different places to advertise those jobs. So really awareness of what remote work is. I've gone a little bit off, but for us, so remote work is location agnostic employment. That's what it is. Yeah, not gig work or stuff that happens outside of cities or anything like that.
But it doesn't necessarily mean complete flexibility about when you work, the times that you work, does it? Which I think people kind of assume sometimes.
Yeah, and as well, so remote work gets caught up in a lot of other things. So it gets caught up in the debate of, well, I don't like working from home. And we're like, yeah, but I mean, it has very little to do with remote work, really. It's one part of it. It's like, well, I don't like working in this particular office, but actually remote work is much bigger than that. So again, if we think about remote work as removing location as a barrier to employment for society and for companies, it's removing location as a barrier to a bigger pool of talent. And then within that, you've got all the variety that you have. If you walk through London city centre and walk past a bunch of companies, they're all going to have different culture, different ways of working. Some you're working till 11 p.m. at night. Others they're sending you home at 5 to go for a cycle. It's all very different. So the likes of customer service roles would be shift work.
Yeah.
And then say HubSpot will be very big on flexibility, but also very big on you agree your outputs and you get to them, and if you don't get to them, then you could be working more. So there are all of these different cultures and ways of working within it, and that's why we like to bring remote work back simply to removing location.
And we were talking about in terms of remote working and actually the basic skills that are needed. We've been talking a lot about skills today as well at the festival, so I hadn't really thought about actually just to start to do remote working. There's a kind of core set of skills that you might need.
Yeah, so there are employers in Ireland have told us since 2018 that Ireland does not have a remote ready workforce, but that is not just Ireland, that is internationally.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things within that. There's kind of an element where, again, do not know enough about remote work to decipher what's a remote job versus a scam or something else like that. Don't know enough about remote work they might be shocked when they're asked to go to team retreats twice per year, or that they'll have to do shift work. That's all very new to them, and where to find it. And then you get into it, and written communication, being able to communicate asynchronously, all of these things become hugely more important in remote environments than they ever were in the office. Equally, we all say, well, presenteeism doesn't work for anybody, and but we've all been used to presenteeism.
Yeah.
Not just some random bad managers. It's how then we were nearly taught in a lot of organizations. So to switch that to inputs don't matter, outputs do, which is what has to happen in a remote environment, can be quite challenging. So really understanding all of that is really important. And just as in terms of call to actions, because I think it's always really important to have actionable advice. There are a couple of different things. Workplaceless have a competency model that brings you through and that they made public around remote work ready skills and leading remote skills. Remote how do training. GitLab, one of the world's largest remote companies, have free training programs on their website, and there are doers who are just teaching others how to do it, which is really powerful. And then we run 2 free training programs across Ireland that obviously we're happy to give to anybody to be able to build awareness around it. But skills, yes, very important.
Absolutely, and not just for people to be remote ready. One of the things we saw in the pandemic was for managers kind of thinking, oh, how do I manage now in this virtual world or hybrid world, whatever it happens to be now as we're kind of coming out the other side of the pandemic. Again, it's new skills potentially are needed, aren't they?
Yes, 100%. And it's both sides. So what we do is systemic change, right? So that's supply and demand. And supply, you have those 80,000 jobs, but unfortunately they're available across Europe. So I mean, the competition is extraordinarily high. Aside from the fact that we have an organisation in Ireland called the IDA who actually ring fence jobs in big companies like Globalisation Partners or Shopify. So they're ring fenced to Ireland. But aside from that, they're available across Europe. So we need to start transitioning more organisations to remote. So we built something called the Alliance, where we make changes at 3 levels of the organisation. We have the CEO commit to transitioning over to remote publicly. They appoint a HR leader who manages the transition, and we meet with them on a monthly basis to solve challenges around how do we implement remote work brilliantly. Then you have training for people managers and then training for all colleagues. So you're injecting change at each level of the organisation. If you do one without the other, it won't work. If you're a really good people manager in a remote team, but your boss is like, but your Jim hasn't been in the office, so why do you give him a promotion? You've no hope. So it's really making sure that change happens at all 3. And then obviously the end of that piece of work is that a job should be equally available to you, whether you are in Dorset or Dublin.
And one of the things that we've found with the pandemic, and we've had more people working from home, is then the impact on the high streets. And so, and also in Dorset, we have a big tourism industry as well. So that means a lot of seasonal jobs. So actually from a digital sector, that's quite interesting in terms of then giving people opportunities sort of all year round. And one of the things you talked about was how actually we might be able to use that tourism sector out of season as well in the context of remote and organisations that are remote organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing to say is sometimes people automatically self-select themselves out of remote work because they say that's only tech. Not only is it not only tech, but companies like eBay and Shopify and HubSpot specifically say, we do not want just tech, we want far more diversity than that. So if you come out of retail and hospitality, I grew up in a family pub in a rural place, it is a very difficult job. And you learn a huge amount of skills and you have a great attitude whether you want to have it or not. So that going into a company is hugely valuable, right? So you can transition out of hospitality and retail into tech, into these kind of tech companies, and organizations like ours are specifically set up to help you do that. The second thing, I guess, is that when you're looking into remote companies, we're working on a place in Ireland called Inishbofin. Two things coming into my head at once now here, but so Inishbofin have a population of about 145 people off the coast of Ireland, and a huge tourism sector that they rely on. So we didn't want to go take people out of the hospitality sector and put them into remote jobs. And then who's going to be there during the summertime?
Yeah.
There's an organisation called Zazzle who actually employ people remotely on the opposite season to what's seasonal for that community. So if we can match the two, they'll be employed all year round, but we won't be sucking talent out of a place that has a very small population and needs good talent to keep people coming. The Main Street then is a really, really interesting one. that goes far beyond us, but it's I suppose what we would like to see going forward is if the average salary in a place is 39,000 a year for most people, or whatever it is, if we can bring in salaries of 50, 60, 80,000, how many of those salaries does it equal, one new coffee shop or one new brunch store or a donut store? And how do we, once we have remote workers and people repopulating areas, how do we bring them together to say, we really need a good pizza place in the town, and support companies to be able to do that, or people to be able to set up those businesses. So the main street is very important, which is why as well co-working spaces are good, because they bring people visibly into a town.
Yeah, because actually working from home, working remotely can be kind of isolating for some people, can't it? It can affect your well-being. And I think the other thing is how do you keep people working in your economy and not, working somewhere else and losing that talent and going elsewhere? So can you tell me a little bit more about the community aspect of what you've been?
Yeah. So what we do, right, is use remote work as a tool for economic development. And we empower local volunteer community leaders all over the world. So we've got 144 now. And they will use remote work to do one of three things. In a place where you have like a population of 140 people, you're not really going to be doing social isolation because there just isn't as many people to bring together. But you will be getting local people employed. And that takes you out of the problems that you have when you're talking about repopulation around housing, infrastructure, all the stuff that we don't have to bring more people in. But we can look after our local people. The second thing that they would do is repopulation. So there's two communities in Ireland in particular, Harmer Island and Valentia Island. Both have used remote work to keep schools open. Like 2 new families have moved to the island thanks to remote work, using in one of the cases something called town tasters that we do. So the third is social connection. And that is critically important to have a supportive ecosystem for remote workers in any country. Often when we talk about remote work, even at EU level, it's all about broadband and hubs. They're hard infrastructure. I mean, you need them, but it's like saying foundations and bricks. I mean, you still need electricity and a nice sofa. You need everything around it. So for the communities who are focusing on social isolation and connection, pub quizzes, growing vegetables together, going for pints, going for cycles, going for runs, all of that, bringing people together for talks around remote work and how everything needs to change. So the largest community and it's all about offline, we don't do any online really stuff around this. The largest community is 250 people and it's in Castlebar in County Mayo, a small location. But again, it's been transformative to go into a pub that was quiet, and for people who are working from home prior to that, and have them meet one another. And final thing on that, we got the chairman of Shopify International as our board member. And we were delighted, and we were very, very lucky. The more we have him, the more I realise how lucky we are. But he was saying that the reason him as chairman of Shopify wanted Grow Remote to do its thing was, of course, they can hire talent better than anybody else because loads of people want remote work. But how do they keep them? And it is only in a thriving software ecosystem that we make that happen. So that's maybe just a little bit about that.
It's really inspiring hearing about the work that you've done and what you've achieved. And I think it just shows how we need to think differently and creatively to tackle the recruitment and retention issues that we're seeing now post-pandemic. There is a conference in April, isn't there, next year that you're running, your first international. Is it international conference?
Yeah, so no, it wouldn't be a first international. We've had 3 conferences. 2018 was what is remote work. Then we went to Tubbercurry the next year and we were like, okay, here is everything remote work is. It is the kitchen sink. Like there was no format, no structure, nothing. It was like, here is everything it is. And now it is, I suppose, what's next? And where is the gap between, again, say councils wanting to do stuff around remote work and it actually happening? Because there's a lot of willingness. There's a lot of energy around, a lot of talk, but still we have a gap in what's actually happening. So it's not pointing the finger, it's just simply where is the challenge around that? And we want to get into some other areas like what will our main streets look like? What will our city centres look like? How does this affect climate change? Diversity and inclusion. And diversity and inclusion in particular one for me, because actually companies often exclude a majority of anybody who's not in a city centre, right? And we don't think of location bias as diversity and inclusion. But me as a woman, I don't even have the same right to be disadvantaged against, as women would in Dublin city centre, because I'm not even getting into the candidate pool for somebody to disqualify me because of my gender. Like, give me equal access to that. Anyway, that's what we're having in April. So we're unsure of the location yet. We're just going to decide the next couple of weeks, and we're very much looking forward to it. And anybody who wants to come, you're more than welcome.
Brilliant. So that's open to anybody, and we'll share the link with the festival promotion. So thank you so much for your time today. That's been really, really interesting. I'm going to go back to the studio.
I'm here with Rebecca from the LEP. It's been so interesting to hear how remote working can work within in-person communities to make sure that we keep that raw local talent. Do you think that's something that we could do in Dorset?
I definitely think it's something we can do in Dorset.
That's
Just
good to hear.
hearing that incredible lady, an incredible story from Ireland and how they've developed that, and hearing how Matt and Mel were explaining this morning about that developing relationships, that's key to us finding a way to remote working. And here in Dorset, we have the 5G connectivity. We are able to connect when in-person is maybe more difficult. We're able to stay connected, but we're also able to have that rural experience, the coastal experience. We're able to live in any environment we like. But if we manage to continue to develop the creative and flexible working environments, we will find a way that businesses have resilient staffing, they're able to fully resource, and actually they're in a position then that they could look to grow.
I mean, as someone who goes to Bmth University and who started in 2020, don't need to say any more, to have my whole first year be online, it was something that was a challenge, but to just think that you could spend an entire university online. It was because of the pandemic, but we still got it done. And I just think it's so incredible the way that technology has moved on, that was something that we were able to do. And I was able to do it from my home, which is in Bournemouth, which is a lovely part of Dorset. I'm gonna have to big it up for a moment. It is coastal, it is beautiful, it is scenic, but also the fact that you could have that experience from anywhere in Dorset.
I agree, and I think your experience in that first year must have been a very steep learning curve of a way that you can engage with a completely new community and learn at the same time.
Yes, it was absolutely incredible in lots of different ways, but it's just something, it's a learning experience, and I'm sure you know that more than anyone, that sometimes you just got to get on with it. Now, do we have any questions that have come in online or from the audience so far?
We do. We have a question from somebody online saying, what do you think we could do to attract younger people to stay in Dorset a bit more? So I don't know if anybody that has spoken so far or has any ideas. I can throw the catch box to you. How do we keep people in Dorset? Anybody in the audience want to take the question? Yeah, go for it, Rebecca.
Okay, so keeping young people in Dorset means that we need to make Dorset look attractive. And Dorset is amazingly attractive, but some of our career opportunities, some of our social opportunities, some of our connectivity challenges, they make it seem a little dull. But often, you come to a place like this, and I've seen the robotic dog walking around this morning. If that's not going to wake up your creative, innovative, how does that actually work element, then actually, what is it that floats your boat? And boats is another big thing, the whole career aspect around marine. We need to get out there. We are working as Dorset Careers Hub to inspire and aspire young children and to open up that world of what is possible here. How can you have that career that lasts you a lifetime but is interesting?
Now that is the question. Do we have any more questions from online or the audience? Amazing. So I also have with me Andrew from the Dorset's Career Hub. That was a great segue. Thank you. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Holland. I'm an enterprise coordinator. I currently support 17 schools in Dorset Council area, but I'm part of a wider team which includes both local authorities, so Dorset Council and BCP Council. And as part of the Dorset Careers Hub under the Dorset LEP, we support 76 schools and colleges. So what do we do in our schools? Yes, we might support our careers leaders in our schools, and we help them with their careers program, their strategy, their development, etc. But what else do we do? We have a network of enterprise advisors, and these are our volunteers from the world of businesses, organizations and employers, and we match them to our schools. But how do we find out about those people to match into schools? We started building a network. And basically, we'd attend events such as this, we'd tell our story, we'd attend chamber events, Dorset chamber events, town chamber events. We start looking at sectors that schools were interested in and needed to know about because their young people wanted to find out about certain sectors. So we'd attend those sectors, we'd network, we'd make introductions, we'd start communicating and telling the story about what it was to get engaged with schools and get engaged with young people, schools and colleges, may I just add. So that's kind of how we started off this networking conversation, really.
So I did notice that as well as saying schools and colleges, is it possible that you work within universities in the area as well?
Yeah, part of our network is to get young people engaged with higher education. So we work really closely with all of our local universities, particularly the departments which focus on widening participation, really trying to raise those aspirations for young people in Dorset to kind of have good aspirations, had good career choices and find out about what it could be to go and attend a university or to get a higher level degree apprentice or a master's level degree apprentice. So all of those things which kind of create the pathways for young people to find out about their future and have a really good career option.
Now that does sound very amazing, and thank you for all the work that you do with that. Now, you did mention networking. So what is something that is important to networking? And more importantly, what is networking?
Well, networking is, we use LinkedIn a lot in terms of growing our network on LinkedIn. The Dorset Careers Hub has a LinkedIn page, has over 1,000 members. How does a school or a careers leader, how do they get involved with businesses? Then they might put a post out saying we've got a careers event happening in 6 months' time. Businesses sign up. You can go along, attend those events. Again, you're networking, you're making those conversations. You're talking to businesses. You're trying to see what they can give back, trying to see how they can engage with young people. And we also have, think about the young person or the child at those events. They could be quite intimidating. So we have our own networking cards, which we've used for those young people. And I've got one right here.
What is a network card? And can I have one, please?
Just some little instructions, little tips. As I said, it can be quite intimidating for a young person. Year 9, year 10, year 11. The year 12s and 13s are a little bit more confident. They might know where they're going.
Third-year students as well.
Exactly. But it's just a few little tips that they can give to employers or prompts to ask employers, little questions. We've had those created.
Now, these are amazing. I would like to thank you so much. I'm actually going to go test this little network card now with my first business spotlight. Thank you. Now I'm here with my first business spotlight, and luckily I've got my questions written down for me already. So, please, can you tell me a bit about yourself and your organisation?
Thank you ever so much. It is absolutely lovely to be here. What a wonderful day. So many lovely faces. And these network cards, by the way, are super cool. I was having a good look at them before we came on camera. Absolutely love it. Well done. So I'm Steve, or Stephen, I don't really mind. It's lovely to be here. I work for a company called Medequip Connect. And Medequip Connect is actually based here on the Innovation Park, just about 100 metres down that way, which is really super exciting.
That is very lucky for you that you haven't had to come very
Thank you very much. It only took about 5 minutes to come across. Brilliant. So what do? We're Medequip Connect, and we are a company that focuses on providing technology to help people live independently in their own homes safely for as long as possible. And you know what? That is super, super exciting. What that does is through technology, we can give families and loved ones peace of mind. We can reduce pressure on carers. And we work closely with in partnership with the council as well to see how we can help the whole community. And you know what? It's super, super rewarding. And I absolutely love my job every single day.
I mean, that is kind of what we want to hear, that you love doing your job. And I think when you're doing a job that is so meaningful and you can see the difference, you know that the difference you're making to everyone's lives. I mean, medical equipment, things like that, these are things that people need. They're things that are so helpful and can just really improve, you know, the quality of someone's life. So thank you for that. So this is something, what kind of job roles does your organisation offer?
Thank you very much. Why don't I just show some of the equipment first, actually, because this is really, really quite exciting. And there's a few examples on the table here, but there's lots and lots more. From all around the world, we take equipment. We don't actually make any of our own kit ourselves. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to work with the council, to work with people all across the country, as well as, of course, in Dorset, to help provide a kit in their own homes. And we go out and identify kit, work with suppliers, manufacturers from right across the world to look and bring kit to the local community. So we've got a few examples here. There's lots and lots more. And the most common devices are some of these pendants and some of these watches, which are absolutely brilliant. And what they actually do is you can give one of these to your loved ones, to your relatives, and they've got a button on them. And you can press the button if you have an accident, if you're in an emergency, maybe you fall over, maybe you just want somebody to talk to. And that automatically connects to a 24/7 support centre, which we run ourselves, and they will talk to you for as long as they need to talk to you, find help for you. They can call your family if you need a little bit of support. They can call the 999 service on your behalf. And that, in turn, reduces pressure on the local ambulance services, on carers, knowing that those individuals have someone there 24/7 on the other side of a device to help them, whatever the situation is. But we appreciate not everybody wants to wear sort of a pendant around their head.
I have to say, I'm assuming this does the same purpose as this. This is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if we can see it. It is absolutely incredible. It's a beautiful little necklace pendant thing. And I think if you have someone who cares about a lot about their experience, not naming any names, but myself, I think if you have something that fulfills such an important purpose, but also looks nice, then you're kind of more willing to wear it, I feel. I feel like that is such a big part, is if you're not wearing something clunky or ugly. If you're just wearing something that's like pretty or elegant, then you're like, I'm going to wear this today, rather than just like, oh, I guess I have to wear this in case I fall over.
I'm really glad you said that, because that's a really great point and exactly one of the things we try and do every single day. And that's why you've got some that are designed to look like necklaces that help remove those stigmatism of I'm wearing a device because I need help and it's got a big flashy red button. That's exactly what we don't want to do. So we've got devices that are designed to look like necklaces. We've got devices that are built into watches that gets rid of all these stigmatisms, and you can go about your day and no one is on the wiser. But going away from just pendants and watches and things like that, there's a lot of other things out there as well. And a big part of this is integrating with a lot of the technology and equipment that people already have in their homes. So I'm talking about your Apple Watches, your smart watches, your Amazon Alexas. I know everybody here has got an Amazon Alexa. I've got one. I'm sure you do at home as well. But they're absolutely brilliant. And we can connect to an Alexa. If someone maybe falls over, they can shout to Alexa and ask them to call for help. And again, it'll contact our call center. We can set it up to contact your family member on your behalf, so you know you've always got help there 24/7.
So it's not just about utilising the equipment that you yourselves have at your disposal, but also making sure that the everyday devices are set up so that they can use your technology and get the help that they need, and you can use the things that you already have. That is amazing. Now, can we talk about the kind of job roles that your organisation has now?
Absolutely, love to. So like I said, we've got an office just down the road, and we're always looking for people all the time. We're growing. It's really, really exciting. We have lots of different jobs, and just because we're a tech company doesn't mean you have to be an expert in technology or know loads of stuff about computers. It's absolutely not what it's about. We have jobs, all sorts of jobs from in the field. For example, we employ a lot of technicians, a lot of engineers, people who go to individuals' home to help them out and install devices, be there as the face of the service, as well as we recruit what we call emergency responders. And this is one of my favorite jobs ever, because emergency responders are trained to help support you in your emergency situations. So they might get the call from the contact center. If someone doesn't have a family or next of kin that can go and help them, we can contact a responder who goes straight to your home, be there in 20, 30 minutes, hopefully a lot sooner as well, and be there for your emergency, maybe help pick you off the floor or whatever else it might be. And that in turns means we can reduce pressure on the local ambulance service and so on. And you said it yourself, it's all about just having someone to talk to as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys do is absolutely amazing, but I think sometimes it's not about the big emergencies. It's not, I'm in a completely drastic situation and I need something like that. But I think it's also, you need someone to talk to. Now, this is one of my last little questions for you. What did you want to do when you were at school?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think it's quite important to this conversation actually, because when I was in school growing up, I loved playing the piano. It's all I ever did. I'd get home from school, I'd play the piano all evening. I always thought, I'm going to be a music teacher. I'm going to be a music teacher. So I did music GCSEs, I did music A-levels. I went to the University of Southampton. Am I allowed to say that in Dorset? I'm not sure. No? You've said it. I've said it, it's too late. And I studied music there at university, which I absolutely loved. It was a really big passion of mine. And it probably goes and carries on from the previous conversation that someone like me who knew nothing about computers and knew nothing about equipment and tech, like some of this stuff, and yet here I am today, having done something completely unrelated in the past, and I'm working in the world of tech, which is super, super exciting without any of those prior skills. And it just shows what is possible for anybody else out there in a similar position to me who might not be sure what they want to do.
Well, you definitely know what you're doing now, so thank you for that. If you have got any more questions at home, make sure that you put them in the comments. But now, we're back to John.
Thanks, Phoebe, and welcome back to the festival sofa, where I'm joined by Ali, Laura, Matt, and Andy. And while you've been listening to the last presentation. So I'm getting hand signals from the floor. That's all it is, folks. Don't panic. So while you've been listening to the other presentations, we've been out into the festival maker tent where I have made this, and I'm very proud. So in this section of the festival programme, we're looking at the question of is technology essential to a digital career? So I just show up my little maker bit that I did a moment ago. Those who can see this clearly on camera, this is a lovely little piece of Lego, which we've made with one of the kits that's on the table in front of me. More of that later, so hang on to that thought. That's about using some traditional technology that many of us remember from our childhood that isn't, to the best of my knowledge, powered by any batteries at all. So that might be part of the answer to the question this morning. But to get a real answer to that, I'm going to come to our first guest. And Ali, I'm going to come to you. Please introduce yourself and talk about the work of your company.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Ali Carmichael. Our company is called Experience UX. We're based in Bournemouth. And really what we're all about is helping our clients, who generally work in the corporate world, kind of step outside their organisations and look at their digital apps and websites and technology through the eyes of their users. Because often the users aren't technological. So it's really important that we help organisations who can get quite caught up in the technology and the digital aspects to help them kind of see what it's like from a human perspective. So we do that by running what we call user research and usability testing sessions. We invite their customers and their audience in. And my team are researchers and consultants, and their job is to sit in a one-to-one environment and to observe people using technology. And by observing people using technology, we get to see the issues, the hiccups, the frustrations, and fundamentally where they might give up. And by observing that, we understand the context, and we can then use that insight to blueprint solutions for our client. So talking about needing digital or technology skills coming into the technology environment, we pitch ourselves as being tech agnostic, because we don't really care what technology our client's website's platform is, because the users don't care. And actually, if you look at it purely from a human perspective, they're just trying to complete a task. They're trying to do something. They're using the technology to achieve something. They're not really caring about what the actual technology is a lot of the time. So helping our clients to see that picture and to design solutions from that perspective rather than designing them from the technology perspective.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to come to Laura next.
Thank you. Good morning, John. Morning, everyone. I'm Laura. I'm the head of design at HM Land Registry. You'll probably know them if you've ever bought or sold a house. Maybe come into contact with some of our services we have there. So I work with a team of something like 30 designers that we have there, designing mission critical services that support the economy to the tune of £8 trillion, which is no pressure at all. So as part of my role there is to ensure that we're designing usable services, that they're accessible, because we're designing for the whole nation. And everyone needs to be served. We can't exclude anyone. So when you design at scale, you can exclude at scale. So my job is also to ensure that we have consistency and coherency of the services as well. And I think another angle that I like to look at my job is that, you know, we're talking about the future today. Organisations always want to talk about the future, what's next, what technology. My job is kind of to be the chief party pooper, to say, have you thought about who's using that? Have you thought about, does it meet a need? We have standards that we have to meet for public services, that they have to be usable and follow a service standard. So it's my job to make sure that's enforced, that we don't have people running off and saying, you know, it's got to be the technology first. It's actually the people first that we need to bring it back to all the time. And going back to what Matt said earlier, Matt Ballentine, with the funeral, that no one would have ever thought to have a funeral over Zoom. I attended one myself. It's only when there's an actual user need for that to happen that you can see the use case. And that's my job. Is there a user need for that? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, good. I'm going to come to Andy next.
Thank you. So actually, I'm going to use what I've brought. So drink our own champagne, as we say. So I'm going to be talking a little bit later about a business model canvas, but let's just try this on for size. So my name's Andy Kidd. My company is Daring Futures. I help business leaders answer 3 important questions. What do they need to do next? How do they want to do it? And how do we want to do that together? As I said, I work with business leaders, managers, and entrepreneurs. They arrive at us, they find us through LinkedIn, website, or Facebook, and we talk to them over the phone or via WhatsApp. I provide coaching and training and mentoring services, consume equipment like Post-it notes and lots of stationery, and I have key partnerships, people like Matt and the International Coach Federation. For that, we charge fees, and we have various costs such as memberships and stationery.
Thanks so much indeed. And now back to the Lego.
The Lego. So how do you get involved in technology without getting involved in technology? That's a great question. I've got 3 daughters. All 3 of them are really good at Minecraft, great with Lego. And I love the fact that in the technology space, people need to build something, but they really need to understand what the problem they're trying to solve is. And that's where non-technology ideas, tools like this can come into. So for the benefit of the audience, I set a challenge earlier to the members and said, here's some Lego. Could you use it to visualize your favorite holiday? And what did you do? Laura first.
Mine's a really good one because obviously I made it, so I'm really proud of myself. So my house is like 95% Lego, so I had a bit of a head start, but I had a really good trip to Lille in France, and this is me drinking some wine with my sun hat on. It's a rosé wine. It's all I had was a rose, so yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Do you want to go to Ali?
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, mine was, the holiday first was a family holiday to Bergerac in one of those camps, and there's lots of pools and water slides, and I was thinking about doing a water slide. So this is my attempt at a water slide. The only hinge in the pack, though, was a pair of legs. So I've got a pair of legs as the hinge to kind of do my wobbly slide. So that's my model there.
Thanks, Ali. And to Matt.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks very much for throwing the Lego at me. So this is me looking down on the top of Machu Picchu, which I was lucky enough to go to as part of a World Challenge expedition when I was 18 years old. So that's me.
Thanks, and I'll just do mine. Very similar, actually, so as that sort of mountaineering. So here's my son, go up the mountain Lake District. So this time a year ago, my wife and I and son had a fantastic holiday in the Lake District. William, now, or then 21, was, of course, round up the mountain, back down again and back in the hotel pool before we'd even scaled the first height. So it was an experience where roles reversed. The son darts ahead of father and mother.
Brilliant, thanks for sharing. So just to bring that home and make it more concrete, why did we do that? Well, do we now know a lot more about the folk on the settees than we did at the start? Is there a lot more that we now know about them than we would have if we just asked them questions? So it's a great research tool. And as a coach, I might be interested, okay, so next step would be, if we were going to go on holiday together, what would a team holiday look like? And how would those models start to come together? And there's some nervous laughter. But this is the sort of challenge that we have when teams come together, is overcoming these individual differences.
Thanks. And we're going to come to Matt.
Cheers, John. Thanks very much. So I'm the founder and director of Milux, which stands for Military User Experience. A very sort of similar business to yourself, except I'm focusing on the defence domain. And that's because my background is as an infantry officer. So I've ended up here having joined the infantry in 2004. During my time in the army, have been exposed to various digital projects and programmes. And that's where I've sort of learned the skills and realised that user experience is so important. Myself personally, however, though, is I moved into sort of delivery coaching and very much sort of aligned to what Andy's been saying, working with teams in order to build those relationships. And some of the things that were mentioned earlier about using the remote tools, collaborating with MURAL online with teams. One of the highlights of actually my summer was sitting in my parents' back garden in North Devon, collaborating with somebody in Italy, Turkey, and the Netherlands on MURAL, trying to sort of solve a complex problem and move their delivery forward.
Thank you for that. So just as we sort of wrap this session out, you get fantastic insights from different businesses. So I'm hoping those of you here in the room with us today will engage further with them. And I've certainly I enjoyed the Lego. I haven't done Lego for years, so thank you for that. It's made my day. But let's look at the issues that sit behind this. Some of those questions about basic skills. I'm going to come back to Ali first and just look at what are those basic skills that we need in our workforce.
Well, if you just look at the team that that are experiencing UX at the moment, they come from various backgrounds. So from graphic design, from marketing, and we've got a new member of our team who comes from a schooling background. So none of which are really technology or digital. So for us, it's about people that are able to kind of just stop and observe. And that's a really important skill for us. So it's trying to get out of our egos, get out of our heads, and be able to observe what other people are doing and see what's really happening. So that's something we train them to do, but there are a ton of natural skills to be able to do that. And I think really it's about just kind of being yourself. And that's really easy to say, but can be really hard to do. And I think that's one of the key things coming out of education is how can you present yourself as a true you without trying too hard and just really believe in yourself and believe in who you are and present yourself as that person. And that really shines through in an interview process. And if I'm interviewing people and they've got that natural ability to kind of understand who they are, but also to be open to understanding other people, that's a massive step forward.
Yeah, thank you. Laura?
Yeah, if I look at my team, it's kind of the same, where they've all got backgrounds in things like psychology and those sort of non-technical industries that you might think people would mostly come from. If I look at myself, I actually studied at Bmth University. I studied web development, so computer science, and my plan, I came out of university thinking, you know, if I just know the technology, if I just know this code and all these sort of things, never mind the people, and sort of partway through my career, they started testing my work with people and it didn't work, and that was quite an eye-opening moment for me. And I think if I could go back to myself now, you know, like when I first started my career, it would be to talk about learning the soft skills. You know, can you listen to people? Can you understand people? Can you ask good questions? Are you curious? You know, all those soft skills are the hard skills, really, aren't they? And I think another thing that we need, if you are entering into your career, if you're starting out, is we need visibility of people, especially for women. We need visibility of people who can teach you those things, because they can be taught. They're things that you need to see people doing to be inspired and to you know how to approach those things. Technology is easy to learn. You know, it's quite black and white. Learning how to listen to someone and ask good questions, as you know, is really, really hard.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Come to Andy next, for me.
Thank you. Yeah, so great points. And what I was reading off was just something I'd scribbled down. This is a tool that I use for organizations to help them. It's called the Business Model Canvas. It's great to use in Mural. You can use it just either put it on a big wall, use it with a team to work out the team. I often use it coaching, so to the points about people coming for interview, this is a super way for an individual really to own what they're good at. Are they good at my daughter, I've got a daughter, my youngest one, 16, she's brilliant at Sims, and what she does is she uses Sims to do interior decorating for her sisters. So she creates worlds. She started in Minecraft. Now, if you print those off and bring them with you, so we look at key activities, plays Minecraft. Well, that's interesting. So what's your value proposition? I can make a world real for you. Well, that, in a usability point of view, is really, really cool. So to be able to own your skills, your talents, working with teachers as coaches or lecturers as coaches, to help bring that out and express it in a way that you can simply sort of sit there in front of these guys and say, here's what I do and here's the value I can add to what you're doing.
Thank you. And finally, Andy, as we sat here in the Battle Lab, as somebody who's come from the military world into the civilian world to share those skills.
No, yeah, thank you. There's not a lot more I can add to Andy's point, but we're lucky enough together at the moment, as I said earlier, to be coaching a team that's made up of people from marketing, finance, design, research, developers, so a real mix of teams that bring that individual expertise. But what I'm looking for in that team is to move the conversation away from I'm doing this, I'm good at that, to we're good at this, we're delivering that, so very much fostering that sort of willingness to be participate in the team.
Thank you for that. And if you haven't, I do, because we've been having great fun this morning over the coffee break, having a look at the business model canvas. It really is something we would advocate. Come and have a look, come and find out more about it, talk to these two guys about all they do. It really is fascinating. Can I thank my guest this morning? It's been a really, really good and inspiring conversation, so thank you very much, and those thoughts about the future workforce. And on that note, I'm handing over to Peter.
Hi. Thank you again. I hope you can hear me in the back. For those of you who've got better memory than I have, because I generally forget what I did an hour ago. So an hour ago, I introduced you to a number of people. So I'll remind you again, I've got Steve, who runs the organisation that have had a variety of sets that the young children here have been playing on and learning about virtual reality. And we'll get Steve to talk in a minute. We've got the young people from...
Thank you.
Okay. We've got the young people from... Just stay there. We've got the young people from Bovington Academy, and I'm going to be... Yes, okay. And we're also going to introduce you to Spot the dog. And because it's a bit difficult, when I've finished talking to the young people from Bovington Academy, I'm going to be walking through here with Spot the dog and with Dave, who is the dog handler. Come and say hello, Dave.
Hiya.
And Dave's going to be answering all of the questions that I know you're going to have, because this is just quite incredible. So you'll have to get in front of me. So we'll get to you in a minute, Dave.
Perfect.
Oh, Steve, do you want to, and by the way, this is a catch box, and we use it when we're with kids and when we're with adults who are like children, and that would be me, because it's so much easier. You don't have to have a mic, you can throw it to people, and then they can speak into it. How have you got on, Steve? Do you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, the kids have been amazing. So we kicked off with a presentation of their ideas for future school. We had all sorts of wonderful ideas from learning about the practical elements of how we grow our food, learning about agriculture, to mindfulness zones where children can take time out to reflect and to recharge and get their minds ready for the next lesson or whatever it is in the school day. So a lot of amazing ideas came out in the pre-work activity. We took some of those into VR, and they're all out of headsets now, but you would have seen them where we started to bring some of those ideas to life, starting with a Ringo ride on our way to the canteen, inspired by a Disneyland ride where you could learn about the life cycle of the food you're about to eat in the canteen. And then we threw a bunch of pillows on the floor for a mindfulness and reflection area. And then the children were just playing basketball where they can never miss because we can script it as such. So they can pick up the ball, they can throw it, shoot hoops from anywhere on the court. And we had a lot of fun with a punch bag and all sorts of other fun fitness activities in their future school.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I'm sure everybody here appreciates that they were able to do that with no equipment other than the VR equipment in a relatively small space. And that has absolutely brilliant applications. I'm just going to talk to the young men and women from Bovington Academy and ask them a couple of questions. And then we're going to come in with Spot the Dog, because I know you really want to see Spot the Dog. So can I start with the head prefect? No, it's the head girl, isn't it? How did you get on today? Did you enjoy it? What did you learn? Keep hold of that and speak into that.
I'm really happy I'm here, and I've learnt loads of things, and yeah.
I'm not trying to catch you out. Does anybody else want to say a few words? You were dancing like a lunatic, weren't you? You were doing brilliantly. What did you learn?
Well, I was, when I got in there, I was like, what is this place? Like, where am I? And then I learned how to walk, and then I learned how to make clouds, and I made a cloud, and none of them can see it, which is sad.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Pash, the teacher, Pash has been in Dorset with the school for 2 whole weeks, so she's quite enough to be able to ask a difficult question. How did you get on, Pash?
Yeah, great watching the children learn in the environment and what their future school would look like and what they would like in there. So it was really great to work with Steve and so bring their ideas to life.
Thank you very much, Pash, and thank you very much for coming. We're really, really grateful. I'm now going to walk through with Dave and Spot the Dog. We need a little space. For some reason, I thought this might be the most interesting thing of the day. No. Right. This is just brilliant. So this is Dave. I'm going to ask Dave... No, I'm not. I'm going to leave you because I've got loads of questions, but it's your day. So do we have any questions? And bear in mind, if you say yes, you have to catch this. Oh, come on. Yes.
How far can Spot run?
So Spot can run at sort of 4 miles an hour for 90 minutes. So I don't know in terms of distance what that is. I can't calculate it in my head that quickly, but yeah, 4 miles an hour for 90 minutes.
6 miles? But tell me, you and I were talking beforehand. What's can I call him a him? What's his use in the battlefield?
So we bought these. We bought four Spot dogs for experimentation. So really, what that means is we're trying to understand where these can be used in the battlefield. So our sort of theory is that they're for removing soldiers from dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks. So it could be chemical scenarios. It could be sort of mapping border patrols around, or perimeter patrols around bases, anything that's dull, dirty or dangerous, or boring really for the soldier, get robotics to do it instead.
And tell us what this all is.
So Spot, the beauty of Spot really is it's just a payload platform. So we can put anything we want on the back. So currently we've got a thermal camera and a 30 times optical zoom daylight camera on the back. But really we can integrate any sensor we want onto this. So yeah, you name the sensor. As long as it's less than 10 kilos and can fit on Spot, we can put it on and pull the feeds through onto the tablet that I've got in my hand.
Have you a question, Mr. Fry?
How robust is it in all weathers? I'm thinking of the rain, the fog, and other stuff like that.
So, so it's waterproof, so it will, showerproof, I suppose, so it can work in rain. There are some limitations with robotics and kind of the current technologies available, so it uses what's called LiDAR. So basically, it's it's his eyes. So it sees rain currently as an obstacle, so rain does hinder it in terms of its outside operation currently, but it's all kind of on the development pathway for Boston Dynamics.
How robust is it? I mean, if it's on 4 legs, if it tips over?
Over itself, right itself. I just have to press a button saying right. So it's fairly robust. We've had a few. You can see it's got a few scrapes on it. So it's fallen down a few sets of steps and stairs and things. But absolutely, it's very robust really for the platform.
Demonstrate that on its side.
I can. Give me a minute. So you can. So that's it falling over. And then you'll just have to give me a minute just to put it back on. So the nicest way of demonstrating without kicking it over is to tell it to roll over as if I'm turning it off. So it thinks it's turning off. So I just turn it back on again and then it will self-right.
Never worked with animals or children. Ah! Oh, well done. Whoa, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, and tell us, Dave, what's this bit here for?
So we've got the arm at the front, which I can demonstrate now. So really, it's for picking anything up, gripping anything. I can open doors with it, so I can walk up to door handles or operate the door handle automatically. And it's got the gripper on the front, you can kind of see there. So it's a very agile arm in terms of kind of what it can do. It's a very impressive arm. I can also use modes on the tablet to pick up items on the floor. I just click on the item and the dog does the rest and picks it up itself.
Have our good friends from Dorset? Yes, our friends from Dorchester have got a question. I'm going to throw you the box.
Well done, me. What's it powered by? How do you power it? Is it battery powered?
Powered, yeah. So it's got a battery sort of built in underneath that we can just pull out and change. So it's just a rechargeable battery that we just swap in and out as and when we need to.
Technology which can't be jammed?
So currently I'm just operating on Wi-Fi, so just like your Wi-Fi in your house, but we have got military-grade radios that we can connect between them to give it as our sort of our anti-jamming technology that we need.
Oh, fine. I'll have a couple then, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yes, Beryl, hang on. I do like that cat.
Yeah, can you actually...
Speak right into it, Beryl.
Oh, can you actually have a payload on there and, you know, make it into an armament at all?
So we can't arm this dog at all. So this dog, Boston Dynamics are very sort of clear in their company ethos that this is for saving lives, not taking lives. So no, absolutely, this is kind of for sensors and things like that, but not for weaponry.
Right. So it can actually, it's got lights on it and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it has got lights. If I go... Testing my quick fingers now, so just changing modes. So yeah, so it has got lights from the back here. There you go. And it has got a speaker on it, so I can... There's a microphone that isn't fitted right now, but there's a microphone on it, so I can speak into the tablet. It'll come out the speakers, and I can hear what people are saying back through the microphone and the tablet. But yeah, as I said earlier, basically any payload we want other than weaponising it.
So it's quite interactive, really?
Yeah, very interactive, yeah. And I mean, in terms of the user control of it, I suspect if I gave it to one of the school kids over there, they'd operate it in a split second. It's very, very easy to control. Yeah, really, really intuitive.
Ah! Yep. The cat. Pat Youngwin, did you have a question? Oh, John, did you have a question? The Winfrith, well, one of you. Right, I'm going to throw it to you. Okay.
I was never any good at netball.
Close it hole. Yeah.
Okay. It's just sort of very interesting, and thank you very much for all this conference. It's been lovely to see all these new ideas. Yeah, it'd be very nice to have one of those. Thank you very much.
Right, I'm told that's time up unless there's any burning further question. Can I thank Dave, because he's just brilliant. I mean, I'm just so jealous.
No worries, not a problem.
Boys with toys or what? But it's brilliant. Thank you very much. Can I thank the people from Bovington, the teacher, Pash, the young gentlemen, the young ladies. You've been absolutely brilliant. I hope you've enjoyed it. And we're going to let Dave and his Spot the dog go home now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
There you go. There's
back to the Festival of the Future. So thanks for being patient during the coffee breaks. And now we're going to speak about some drone footage and what the company does. So hi, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
To you. My name is Ray Faulkner. I'm the Managing Director of iRED, and this is my colleague Steve Welland, and he's our Chief Flying Instructor.
Great. So I understand that you might be at the camera. We've got the drone out in the field behind us. So do you want to explain, before we go across to the drone, a little bit about who you are and what your company does?
Okay, we're a remote sensing consultancy where we use drones and we use infrared and other remote sensing instruments in order to gain information. So we would look at buildings, for instance, for heat loss, which is very prevalent today, to see if they're fully insulated. The drones allow us in a safe way to be able to look at a roof and to be in areas which otherwise would be inaccessible. So that would be one simple way. We can look at fields, to look at crops, to see if they have sufficient nutrients or water. There are many, many applications of the drone.
Yeah, so the impression I'm getting is that everything, really, the use for these sort of drones, it's kind of jack of all trades.
It does sound as jack of all trades, but you've got to remember that 5 years ago, none of this was possible. People will have heard of radio-controlled enthusiasts who would have been flying remote aircraft as a hobby, but we've now transitioned this from a hobby market very much into the industrial and commercial market. People are looking for new opportunities every day, as are we. And what is very, very exciting, and I think very exciting for the younger generation coming through, is that there is so much we have yet to discover. It is brand new.
So on the subject of discovery, I believe we're going to cut across to from the drone now if we wanted to get it started. There we go. So which way is the camera facing at the moment? Is it us?
At the moment it's facing towards the building over in the distance, so away from the camera. What I'll do is I'll raise the camera up, raise the drone up, turn it round and look at the building and the crowd that stood out in front of the building.
Great. So whilst that's happening, did you want to talk about some of the roles in iRED?
Our roles are increasing all the time. We are very much looking for young people coming through out of not just university, but people who are coming through from their further education. For us, what's most important are people to show enthusiasm. I want somebody who is going to be yearning to learn or looking to push the barriers of what can be achieved. And this isn't just being completely tech. This will include social media. This will include website design, communication. We're looking for people who can actually go out and do surveys with thermographic cameras. And we found that the best training they can have is actually in-house. So we're always looking for young people to come in and join us.
And so we spoke a little bit at the festival earlier around kind of attracting talent into places like Dorset and engaging with that younger generation. And from kind of that outside perspective, drones are kind of this cool new technology that everyone's interested in. But how do you grow talent?
Yeah, that's throw some money at it. It's always the easy answer, isn't it? I think we have got to make the workplace exciting. People don't want to have jobs where it's boring. They can't be bothered to get up in the morning. And I think when we are dealing with the drones, we have got now something which is established, but equally all the time we're trying to push the boundaries. And I think if young people can come in and say, look guys, we don't actually have all of the answers. You know, you're the bright things, you're the ones coming through. We are prepared to listen to you. And what we've found, and I think I'm hopeful that everybody in my company would say this, that it is very collaborative, and we will listen to all of the ideas. Now, they don't all work, and that's, I think, is something else actually. That is another important point. You've got to be prepared to fail. It won't always work all the time, and we have made many, many mistakes. But it's, can we learn from it? Can we improve it? Can we do something better? And whatever it might be, that should be the goal. I think as far as Dorset is concerned, we need to make sure that the whole infrastructure is working around. This is a fantastic facility here. Now what we've got to make sure of is that we can get here. We want to make sure that transportation's good, that housing is good. So this is beyond sort of remit, but we need to make the whole environment one where somebody can say, hey, I want to be here. This is where I want to live.
I think some really great points, and I liked your point around the failure, and there's a good point around creativity and design in terms of failure isn't always a bad thing. You're going to be learning from it. So the drone is very high up now. So is the camera facing us at the moment?
Yeah, the camera's face. I can move the camera back around where we actually are.
So is there any audience that's stood outside that want to give us a wave while the drone's flying? But
Camera pointing towards us, but we'll zoom in now. We'll see the zoom capabilities of this particular camera. We'll be able to zoom right in and see our faces while we're being... Okay. And we can zoom in and you can see. Really close.
It's not a very attractive angle, but it's good to see the zooming capabilities of the drone. So before we wrap, is there any other points you wanted to make back on while we're on the camera if we cut from the drone footage now?
Well, I think as probably now where young people would see us as an established company, I think we would turn around and say thank you very much, Dorset Council, for having this facility, for us to be able to be here, for us to be able to collaborate not only with the military but with other tech companies. This is a fantastic resource here, and we're extremely grateful for the opportunity that they've afforded us.
Great. Well, thank you both for coming to showcase your work and your drone. I believe now, because we've got an absolute stuffed schedule full of things to talk about, that we're going to be heading back on the other camera, back in the studio.
Oh, apparently.
Welcome back to the festival sofa. I did promise you some exciting technology, and that was a real wow. We really enjoyed that real buzz here. Everybody's out on the grass at Winfrith, and I hope those of you who are online also got a sense of that technology. So I'm back on the sofa this time with Stephen and with Matt and Mel again, which is great to have a further conversation about some of the challenges of the future workforce. And the question I've got to pose to Stephen first off is, can data save lives?
Thanks, John. And that's a very good question to start with. So I believe yes. And a lot of the way the NHS has historically used data in the past has been around how can it plan for flow and getting more people through hospitals and things like that. Also keeping a record of all the treatment that you've had and how that's gone. But they don't necessarily share it in the past. So that's great for the doctor, the nurse supporting you. but not so much in sharing that to understand, has your care been the same as somebody else's? And if your outcome has been different, why? And so now we're getting to the stage where we're using that data, pulling it together from the NHS side, from all the different care settings, to really drive out those insights and that intelligence that will take away variation in treatment and raise up the outcomes for all of our residents in Dorset. We've taken some extra steps with that. We've introduced data from local authorities, so from yourselves, Dorset Council, and from colleagues at Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole as well. So we get a complete picture about the person rather than just the symptom they're presenting with. And that's a huge challenge. Loads of different data sources, loads of different rules about how you do it safely, how you respect people's wishes. But it is starting to make a difference.
Yeah. Just to bring back when we were talking earlier, just before we came on camera, I was saying I've got the pleasure of going out to the States next week, so I've got to make sure I've got all my COVID passes up to date because we're visiting some places where they still look for those. So I've got the app, I've downloaded it, it'll work well, you'll be pleased to hear. But I suppose my question is, it's been a huge step forward, because the last time I took a major overseas visit, I actually went with paper documents. I happened to jump into a river, reasons I won't go into. It was my brother's wedding, so that might give you something of a clue. And now, of course, I'm going with a digital pass. I was careful not to jump into the river with my phone, but the question is really, where's this technology going? Because clearly it's come a long way in a relatively short space of time, and now is something we almost do without question.
It has come a long way in a very short space of time, but I still think there's a lot further that it can go. We all use our data and share our data with supermarkets, with our banks, with online retailers, and it's almost without a second thought. When it comes to your health data, people are still very protective and quite reluctant in some cases to share that because of some of the information that's in there. People don't want to be shared with others. But the difference it can make if it is shared with others benefits not only yourself but potentially other people as well. The apps have accelerated the use of technology, as we've heard from other people this morning. Changing the places that people work have been huge over the pandemic, and we've also tried to adopt that in healthcare more and more, so putting more technology into homes to support people and trying to make the place where care about your condition and yourself isn't necessarily in one of our traditional places of care. So not at the GP surgery, not at a hospital, but where you are. So making the person the place in some cases, where it's safe to do, obviously. So you can have your treatment, your interaction with a healthcare professional anywhere.
Thank you. Matt, we were talking earlier, you pick up that point that Stephen raises about that challenge. So on the one hand, all the advantage that sharing our data can give us to colleagues in health, giving us a better healthcare, a more responsive service, one which is able to diagnose our conditions quicker, more effectively. But clearly there's the downside of that, as Stephen was referring to, the issue about making sure data is secure and confidential. And we as end users can have confidence in the people to whom we provide our data. I just welcome your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the challenge comes with the kind of unintended consequences. I had a bit of a wake-up call with this, 3 years or so ago. We've got a smart meter at home. The smart meter gives your electricity energy company 2 bits of data, one for electricity and if you've got gas, one for gas, every 30 minutes. So 24, 48, 96 pieces of data a day. It's a very, very small amount of data. But by taking that, plus being able to use analytics, plus being able to gather data from lots of other people, my energy company started to tell me how I was using my data. And on one side, that was very interesting because most of it was being used in heating and hot water, and then smaller amounts on white goods and fridges and washing machines. But then I started to think, I don't know whether I want my energy company to know that about me, and that they're getting that from what's a very, very slim feed of information coming through. What that meant, actually, in my last job, I was working for a housing association. And one of the things that we did as a result of those kind of realisations was that we set up a framework for being able to get people to think through the consequences of what they were doing, rather than just leap feet first into adopting a new technology, to be able to think about what the primary use of the thing was and does that meet with the organisation's purpose? Are there secondary things? So have the energy companies really thought about the impact of knowing how much time you're spending computer gaming or on white goods or is there some issues there? If you think that's okay, are you sure your supplier, the people that you're working with, have good intent? So, for example, with Boston Dynamics, the amazing robot we saw earlier, they've made clear stipulation, this cannot be used to harm people. And then the final stage is, if you are going to go ahead, then being absolutely clear about communicating what you're doing and how you're doing it to the people that you are using the data of. And if you get those sorts of things in place and you've got that kind of rigorous sets of steps of making decisions, I think there's a challenge with the technology industry that too often we find that we will do it because we will do it and not question whether we should do it or not, and then it's too late. So actually going through those steps, I think, makes a big difference.
Mel, if I can come back to some of that theme we were talking about when we spoke earlier and pick up on the points that Stephen was making. You know, purely personally, the NHS app has made a big difference actually to me, and that's really helpful. But a lot of this is to do with the end user experience. Clearly, more and more people are using technology on a daily basis. Of course, I guess, Stephen, many of the people that you're dealing with are of an older generation, and you know what are the challenges potentially around the digital divide. But Mel, I just welcome your thoughts about that kind of that human end of it, if you like, the human interaction with technology.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's a crucial one. Thinking about the end user, you know, there's a lot of fear around data, and we talk about data literacy, and I think it's important for us not necessarily to just think about digital literacy, but equally to think about data literacy. And, you know, since the dawn of the mobile phone and the social media apps and networks that we've got, there is a sense that as end users, we've lost control of data and we've lost our connection with data. And I think we need to take back control and to reconnect ourselves with data. So there's something there for me around who owns the data. And if I am owning my own data, then how do I take responsibility and accountability for that? So I think that from an end user's perspective, there's a literacy and a skills element and a knowledge element that is really important. But equally, you know, from a provider's perspective, it's how are we being transparent with the use of that data? It's very, very important as well. I think transparency when it comes to data is vital.
Steve, you're nodding. I know this is something that occupies your mind day to day, so welcome your thoughts.
Yeah, and picking up on Matt's point, some of that unintended consequences from the collection of the data from your house, if we're doing that for somebody who's vulnerable or perhaps lives alone in an isolated place, we can start to spot changes in their usage of their white goods. Have they opened the fridge this morning? Have they come downstairs and turned the light on at half five in the morning like they do every morning? And if they haven't, could we send somebody round? Could they go and have a conversation, make sure they're okay, send a friend, send a neighbour, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of unintended consequences, absolutely, but some really positive ones, I think, as well, if it's done in the right way. And data is going to be so powerful, unlocking the value from it, the intelligence that's within.
Healthcare is what you do when things go wrong, the kind of, you know, the garage repair model of healthcare. And I think a lot of people outside of the health industry kind of conceive it like that. Actually, I think a really well-functioning approach to health in a society is about being able to think about as the promotion of good health rather than just the fixing of bad health. And particularly as we get older, you know, you get into a situation where you don't have things that are fixable. You have chronic conditions that you learn to live with. And you know. But a good friend of mine is diabetic, and his life has been turned around through a patch that he wears on his arm that connects by Bluetooth to his phone that enables him to continuously monitor his blood sugar levels. There's further in that where you've now got groups of people who've created effectively an artificial pancreas by having a closed-loop system that links both insulin injection to those kind of sensing devices. And that's about the constant monitoring of data and enabling people to be able to adapt behaviours, to be able to live with conditions, or to be able to, you know, just live better. I've got a healthcare cover which incentivises me to do more exercise, and I get benefits if I do that, as well as good health. And that's all based on the data that's being collected by my watch and my phone. So it's partly about how the data is used. I think a lot of it, though, is also how you feed that data back to the people who can most make a difference. And that's not clinicians, that's us on a day-to-day basis. That's really exciting stuff.
Mel, that behavioural bit, your point, My niece has just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and it's interesting talking to my sister about it. As a family, they're learning just to cope with that and help her and support her manage that condition. So again, we're back to very much a theme we've been discussing throughout this morning around the technology is there. It can do many, many things, in fact, probably more than we could even imagine. What about us as recipients? Are we using that, as Matt's suggesting, in the best way possible?
Yeah, and again, that's back to skills and knowledge and understanding, and also taking away that fear. But you know, with technology, especially from a health perspective, because we are using everyday technology, we're using apps and so on and so forth to create, you know, med tech innovation. What that means is intuitive, so it's already a part of the technology that we're using within our personal lives. And that's brilliant, because what that does is, you know, with an app around diabetes, I can take ownership of my own condition and monitor my own condition, as opposed to having to wait for, you know, that time when I've got an appointment in 2 weeks' time in front of my clinician to tell me about that data. Now, all of a sudden, the data is also in free flow in real time for me, so that I can start to understand myself more and start to manage my own health and my own condition more. And I think that's really important as well. So it's back to that ownership of data, being able to take responsibility of it. But then the next thing is, of course, Steve, is taking accountability as well, isn't it?
And Stephen, one of the other things we've been exploring this morning is the workforce of the future. I mean, the health service employs a very large number of people. I think between us, we're the biggest single employer in the county. But this must be quite a challenge in terms of enabling that workforce to come on the journey as well, and make sure that your staff are making the best use of that data.
It is, absolutely. And we've taken a leaf actually from the council's book with the digital champions, which you run very efficiently from the council. And we've put now digital care coordinators in each GP practice, so that if we're going to be giving and suggesting people use apps, there's somebody there that can help you understand it if you've never ventured into that space before. And that's really important. If we want people to use this technology, for it to become part of their everyday life, and it's not today, we have to support the population in coming to terms with that, understanding that, and engaging with us through that mechanism if it's right for them.
Yeah.
But we're having to try to attract more people in roles which have been very different in the health service. So artificial intelligence, so taking lots of the data we have now and doing that predictive piece. What happens if somebody doesn't change their approach to lifestyles? What happens at big events like the county show? What should we expect to be the load on GP practices, community hospitals, the ED department over that weekend, and so on, Bournemouth Air Show. So data and how we use it is really important. How we bring in these new technologies, these new ways of working to support very traditional ways of working is also hugely important. So data scientists, more analysts, business process analysts, change management people who can help with that organisational development, change and embedding changes to cultural approaches to things. Hugely important, hugely in demand. But very exciting. The NHS is really ripe for that digital transformation to help it support and move forward. And with the use of the data in a smarter way, coming back to the wellness aspect, we can move away from what's probably become now a national illness service to coming back to the National Health Service and being about well-being and supporting people to take responsibility for their own health.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Good, so thank you ever so much. Just thank my guests on your behalf, back on the festival sofa, and we're now going to go to a short video piece with, again, another to Phoebe, who's going to introduce the next item.
And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I have got two new amazing guests in my little business booth. So could you please tell me who you are and a little bit about your organisation?
I'm Josh.
And we are from Three-Sided Cube. So we are an agency based in Bournemouth, and we create mobile apps and digital products with a focus on using technology for good. So there's been a lot of talk this morning about how technology is agnostic. You can use it for good, you can use it for not so good. And our focus as an agency, we are mission-led, and our mission is to change millions of lives for the better, and we do that by using technology for good. So we have first founded in 2009, and we've grown hugely since then, particularly over the last few years. We have over 80 QBs, as we call them, based across 6 different countries. So we have a wide-ranging workforce. And over the years, we've worked with some amazing charities. We work with governments, NGOs. So we have worked with the American Red Cross, the British Red Cross, more local to home, Lush, which is a Bournemouth business.
You can't go wrong with a bit of Lush.
Absolutely, completely agree. So yeah, our team has created some absolutely amazing apps that are helping make the world a better place, from an app that helps track deforestation in the Amazon, to the one that we did with Lush was to help them reduce their plastic packaging. So anything that makes an impact on the trees, people, the seas, animals, that's where our focus is. Recently, actually, we have a weather tracking app that tracks weather systems largely across the US. And they had quite a bad hurricane on the East Coast a couple of weekends ago. And our app that we have sent out 67 million alerts to people to alert them to help them get into shelters in time before the storm hit. So all about making an impact.
It was your app that was telling people about Hurricane Ian? That's amazing.
It was indeed, yeah.
That is truly amazing. So I was also wondering, what type of job roles does your organisation offer? I mean, obviously you do a lot of good, but what can you do within your company?
This microphone is incredible, by the way. Yes,
It's a cube.
So we, three-sided cube, so what we have is we have 2 sort of principles that we work with. So it's the non-production side and the production side of the business. So in production, that could vary from project managers, it could be testers, it could be developers on a platform, front-end, back-end, Android and iOS. And then we also have, like we said, our non-production side. So we have the people team, so the best team. And then it ranges...
2 of the best people from the best team.
And it ranges from strategy to commercial and also to marketing. And something that we also promote as well is our Cube Academy. So as part of the Cube Academy, it's a focus on engaging with education systems, like, for example, colleges, universities. And, for example, if a student in their 3rd year, let's say at Bmth University, let's highlight that now.
I wonder who they could be talking about.
So if that person has at least sort of 8 hours free in their week, it gives them the opportunity to engage in industry experience. It gets them involved in whether it's design, whether it's software development. So we're rebranding that at the moment. So stay tuned. And in terms of the recruitment side of things for both those roles, we've had a really busy 12 months where we've brought in our cubes to a various number of roles, and it's been really successful. So we've been looking forward to it, and we've got some really talented people building tech for good and really sort of making an impact on people's lives.
Well, that is amazing. And I've got to say, the Cube Academy sounds like the kind of school that I wanted to go to. But what did you guys want to do when you were at school?
Well, I actually wanted to be an actress. A world-famous Hollywood actress was my dream.
Everyone kind of has that dream at some point, I feel.
Absolutely, yeah. I actually went on to study theatre and film at Sussex University, not BU, unfortunately. Studying that gave me so many transferable skills to what I do now, around communication, presenting, people skills, all the things that are really, really important for any role, I think. So I think it doesn't necessarily matter what you do at university, it's what you do with those transferable skills that you gain from your degree. And Josh, what did you want to do?
I really hope it's as interesting as actress.
I'll do my best. No, drama actually was a big passion of mine when I was at school. And then I actually was interested in sports journalism. And then what happened was I went to university, and that's when I sort of expanded in my social skills, became apparent, and those soft skills that we talk about. I think we mentioned it earlier. And I realised that for me, like, people was a massive part of what I do. So I've been really fortunate to have various careers in different sectors where people are the focus. But yeah, like Emily says, we've sort of gained so many transferable skills that now allow us to work with a multitude of people in various different ways and bring, like I said, a culture to a business, and it's really important with our workforce.
I mean, talking about your workforce, what is it that you do look for when you're taking on new staff? I mean, you've obviously touched on it already. You want those soft skills, you want those transferable skills, but is there anything else in particular that you look for and you go, that's who I want working with us?
I think in terms of, we've both got answers with this, I think in terms of the workplace, it's kind of leaving your ego at the door. And I think that's quite important in a lot of ways of life. It could be fitness and health. And we are a team, and it's about cohesion. It's about working towards a goal, because our mission is changing millions of lives for the better. So if you can sort of leave your ego at the door, but also hold yourself accountable in everything that you do, that really leads to that sort of successful pathway.
I would say the most important thing that we look for as well is belief in what we're doing, belief in the mission that we're trying to make happen at Cube. And that is changing millions of lives for the better. I think when everyone is united behind one mission, it makes any business a really cohesive, collaborative place to be. And particularly if that mission is to help people, that's even more of a driver. So there's always going to be stressful days at work, deadlines and things like that.
I can relate to deadlines.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you know that at the end of that, you're going to have contributed to creating an app that will help a Ukrainian refugee or even a farmer in Africa, it just makes so much difference in kind of getting you through that stress and realizing that you're part of something greater and you're helping the world become a little bit better, because I think it needs it just a bit at the moment.
I can completely agree with that, and I think that is a absolutely great ethos. Now, as one last kind of selfish question, do you have any tips on how to be successful with work if you're about to graduate in a few months?
Oh, I would say a tip, not just for someone who might be graduating very soon, but for anyone in the workplace is I would say learning how to be resilient, having the ability to respond to pressure, deal with adversity and overcome difficult situations is something that will help anyone in whatever work that they're in. As I said, work can be a stressful place, but being able to bounce back from any setbacks and learn from them rather than kind of dwelling on them, I think that will serve anyone in good stead in any workplace, in any type of work that they choose.
Do you have anything to add,
I can add my 2
George?
cents. Yeah, no, I think, like I said before, it's very much a case of the ability to work as a team, and it's, of course, like, innovation is massive in what we do, so it's the ability to innovate, but then also can you work with like-minded others and form that cohesion to work towards that common goal. And that's the thing, that's what we look for. It's the staple of what we do. It is that mission statement that we have in terms of changing millions of lives for the better on a sort of social or environmental impact. So if you can all work together, you will cross that finish line and you'll be able to deliver.
Well, that has been absolutely amazing from both of you. Thank you. And I think these two have already done an amazing job of selling Three-Sided Cube, but I think we actually have a video clip from them that we can play now as well. Thank you for enjoying this Business Spotlight.
welcome back to the festival sofa, where I'm joined by Rebecca from Dorset LEP and Fran from Dorset Council. In this session, we're going to seek to draw some of the strands that we've been discussing this morning together and think about the impact of the digital economy on the growth of Dorset itself. Rebecca, can I come to you first?
Okay, so thinking about the digital economy and the digital highway, I guess it is, that we've created, it connects businesses. It looks to, just as a business can't function without the physical logistics, it rarely can function without the digital logistics these days. And across Dorset, I think we've created that 5G network to enable businesses to look at how they use that for growth. And as we've been understanding this morning, you know, with teams and with leadership and with us being able to develop that hybrid way of working and to get the best opportunities for our employees as well as the best growth for our businesses, we need to utilise the digital capability that we've put in place.
In the conversation we were having earlier with Matt and with Mel, they were making it very clear that the technology was there. The technology wasn't the thing we should worry about. It was making sure we got the right skills, that we were training, upskilling our workforce appropriately. I know that's something in Dorset LEP that you've given a lot of thought to and in fact you lead on, so we'd welcome your view on it.
I do lead on it, and it's absolutely, I think the soft skills, as we would say, in terms of the personal skills, the characteristics of the person that you're employing are just as important as the technical. I think we're seeing huge volumes of vacancies at the moment. We're 50% up on last year. We've got 77,000 vacancies so far advertised across Dorset, and they fit all sectors. All sectors have grown and all sectors are looking to fill their vacancies. And digital skills sit right across there in harmony with the personal characteristics for those roles. And I think we're trying to take the digital skill part forward through the digital skills partnership, and we're also looking at all of the opportunities that government are affording us at the moment for us to reskill and upskill both our young people, but also all of us as we get older. You know, the career I envisaged when I left school at 16 is not what I'm doing when I'm 53. And sometimes you fancy doing something different, and the opportunity is there through apprenticeships, through skills boot camps, through the colleges and the adult education budget, and through the universities. And it's so important for us to stay tapped into that and make sure that businesses are able to express what they need from those from the education side, but also how they develop the personal skills.
Thank you for that. Fran, let me come to you, because you lead on a lot of the skills development work in Dorset Council. So tell us a bit about what you're doing and how you, as part of one of Dorset's large employers, is tackling that issue that Rebecca's talked about.
Absolutely. So my role is to lead on the apprenticeship and work-based learning offer at Dorset Council. So that's about mapping apprenticeships and work-based learning programmes to our current and future skills need to make sure we are future-proofing our organisation and providing quality development opportunities to existing employees, but also looking at ways to attract and retain new employees.
Do you want to just talk to me about that challenge we've reflected on there, particularly when we were talking to Matt and Mel, and we were talking about that just before we came on camera, indeed. That challenge about, it's about the people, not the technology. So again, from the role that you do, I'm just interested to hear, what's your direct experience of actually really helping people become confident in the use of technology, making sure that we're supporting our employees to grow and develop their digital skills so that we're actually making the best use of the technology?
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons I love apprenticeships, because they develop the knowledge, but it's about developing the skills as well. So you learn the theory, but what skills do you need to apply that theory in the workplace, and making sure it becomes a part of what we do and we just embed it in the day-to-day work life.
And Rebecca, you talked a little bit earlier about government policy on this. I mean, clearly some changes in government of late, and we're looking to that new ministerial team to see where they're going on the employment agenda. But just, again, welcome your views about how we might look to government to support us with some of the endeavours we've got in Dorset.
Okay, so we have taken every advantage of any opportunity. So skills boot camps were an ideal example where we were able to work with businesses and education providers and create short courses, 8 to 12 weeks, funded by government, to support people to change their career, to change their skill set. We recognise that people throughout their careers develop their personal skills, and we've got, personal skills can be are valid right across a different range of job roles, but actually providing something where we create those skill sets to go into a different sector is really important. We also, I know Dorset Council are looking at a fibre school to look at how we can get more fibre engineers trained. We've also, as I mentioned, got the Digital Skills Partnership, but there are a continuing range of things coming out. The latest one is the Local Skills Improvement Plan, and we're working with Dorset Chamber and businesses to understand what businesses really say they want at the moment, and to really get under the skin of the data that we see from looking at data scraping the internet.
Great, thank you. Fran, I'll come to you. So a slightly personal question, but not too personal. Becca's talking about her experience of her own career, and you saying that what we're in now is not necessarily what you'd envisaged when you first came into the workplace. Again, Fran, just welcome your take on that challenge. The world of work has changed. I think I shared a little bit earlier my own experience of working in an office where every desk had a computer, and this was an outstanding thing at the time, extraordinary. We were considered very privileged. But I just wonder, in terms of the job that you've got now as an employee of Dorset Council, how are you seeing your career impacted by technology and digital, all those things that are fast changing the world?
Absolutely. I remember when I started at the council, it was kind of a luxury to have a laptop to take home occasionally, and now we all obviously have devices, we all have kit. It's become a part of what we do, and it's enabled us to work flexibly, work in different ways, and connect with different organisations to think about how we can collaborate and do things differently. So, ever-changing environment.
So, Rebecca, if I could ask you actually the same question, because I'm sure your career is not anywhere near its end. You're going to be doing lots of exciting things in the future. But I just wondered how you saw the world of technology changing and impacting both your working life and, as we were saying earlier, about your kind of our own lives as well as residents.
Yeah, I mean, technology has changed hugely, hasn't it, since I was 16 anyway. But the thing that I see at the moment changing is that we are using it for more and more work applications that are relevant to social lives as well. Just hearing the interview there with Josh and Emily from Three-Sided Cube really shows how we're using tech for a really positive, world-changing, or something that's really going to change how you deal with risk and deal with challenging situations. I think my own experience of technology is that when I started work for a bank, a high street bank, not every desk had a computer, but most desks had a typewriter. But school was changing because school would not teach you to learn to type. Yeah. So there's just such a different way into work now. From the very get-go, young children are familiar with digital. They see us using digital technology, both in a work and a home position all of the time. They're never afraid of it, and I think that for me gives a confidence at the time that you start looking for your first job. You're already aware and confident with using technology and know a little bit about what you can do with it, and that sparks interest then to look at what's next.
Could you explore a little bit of that kind of the changing technophobia? I certainly remember when that computer on my first desk, I was terrified that I was going to break it and I'd get in trouble with my boss. I did some work once with a futurologist from BT, and he had 3 daughters, and he gave the example of the first daughter, if she couldn't get the computer to do what she wanted, she'd go to the manual and she'd read the manual and figure out how to do it, and that was fine. Second child, if they got stuck, would probably ask the first child or just sort of work it out. What he saw his youngest daughter doing was she'd be able to produce a picture on her computer and print it out. So she then took a blank piece of paper and drew a picture onto that and tried to feed it back into the printer. This is before the days of scanners. And powerful point, because he said, you realise the significance of that. This child does not understand that technology will not do what she wants it to do, in a way that the older child was, in a sense, more subservient to technology. Again, I just welcome your thoughts on that in terms of what that might mean for the future place for all of us.
I think that's fantastic. It's a great example as well. But I think, I guess children are curious, and we watch what they do, and we see how they learn when they're very young and as they develop. We see the kids this morning, none of them were fazed by having to wear a headset and interacting with the game. We've heard about Minecraft this morning, we've heard about The Sims. You know, young people are engaged with platform global games. They see it as games, they see it as fun. That's how kids learn. And I think it's how adults learn. You know, I learn so much more if I'm enjoying a job or if I'm having fun with a job. And I think you get that from your colleagues. So the whole conversation we had earlier where we were talking about in-community working together as well as remote and online. And I'm going to watch back that lady in Ireland, because some of the things that she was coming out with were amazing. But the technology is there. And like the personal skills, the technology is there in the background. It's waiting for us to recognize what we need to do with it. I'm very grateful that there are people that create the technology, because I'm definitely not that person. But I'm there ready to have a go with it. And, you know, I am confident with it now. But, yeah, at 16 it didn't exist.
Yeah. No, I like you. I thought it was wonderful because I popped round the corner to see those young people this morning.
Yeah.
Just playing with the technology. And it was took me back to that BT example that we hopefully will continue to bring on young people who are much, much more demanding of technology than perhaps my generation would have been. So I think that's really exciting, offers great opportunity. Fran, just welcome your take on that issue.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying with children, it's just a part of what they do, what they've grown up with, and they're curious and they want to learn more. And I think that's really inspirational for the future. You know, where are they going to take this and how are they going to use this as part of, you know, what they do in their new roles, you know, growing up. So it's exciting.
Can I thank you both? I think that's given me a real kind of, you know, really excited. Fest of the Future, excited we are this morning here from Winfrith. So I'm now going to cut you into a piece of video where we're going to hear from the chief executive of TechUK.
We've had a busy morning at the festival today, looking at what different technology and digital companies in Dorset are doing, from design to drones and even 3D printed aircraft. So it's really great to welcome you, Julian, to Festival of the Future. So Julian, you're Chief Executive of TechUK. Do you believe that technology can deliver us a better future?
I do. I mean, you have to really in this job, but I've been in the industry for more than 30 years. And I've seen, you know, the things that technology can do across a whole spectrum of activities in every part of the economy and the community. And what we're focused on in TechUK is how do we harness our membership? We've got something like 1,000 companies in membership, from the biggest names that everybody knows, both nationally and internationally, across the tech landscape, through to more than 500 SMEs. Some of them bringing out particularly niche solutions, focusing on areas of public safety, city management, environmental control, green tech. It's, you know, it's a big spectrum. Nearly 1 million people employed by those companies working across the UK. So, you know, you've got to believe you can do some good with that kind of membership working with you, Lisa.
Absolutely. I was at another festival that said technology can save us, and you talked about the green agenda there, and I think probably there is a huge role, isn't there, for how technology can solve us can help us with some of those real societal challenges that we face.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about the big challenges, and we define ourselves as working on positive outcomes for people, society, the economy, and the planet. You know, we actually say that's part of what we and our members want to focus on. And so we were very active with members looking at COP26 agenda. We're very active looking at the net zero agenda. We absolutely believe that technology, digital technology, is essential to, but also a real big benefit and helper to people getting to net zero, but to taking on the challenge of climate change. And everybody can do something here. You know, a lot of people facing very big energy bills, and clearly one of the ways to actually address that is to have smarter energy supply and smarter energy usage. And you see that with, you know, simple things like programming washing machines to come on, you know, when energy's less in demand, managing electric vehicles in a different way, et cetera, as well as building, you know, new smart grids and managing all that kind of stuff. So yes, technology can help.
So you must get to see all sorts of kind of cutting edge and emerging technologies. What are the things out there that you think is going to provide us with those new opportunities?
So look, I think we're going to hear later from one of my colleagues, Matt Robinson, who's been looking at this whole aspect of you know, what are the key things that you need in order to have a thriving digital economy and community in the local regions and the whole of the country. And he would talk about some of the things that we've identified in a whole series of dialogues we did to say, okay, what matters for you in the way this technology is applied. But let me just maybe highlight a few, Lisa, which I'm sure you've been featuring at Future Fest anyway. And if you haven't, then maybe that's something for next year. But you know, let's start with the basics, connectivity. And it's really good to see you've got such a great test bed for 5G in Dorset, because that's a real game changer, particularly in a rural environment, because obviously part of the problem, and this came out actually over the problem of wildfires and fires and drought and so on affecting farmers and other areas, that people could see something going on, they were out in the field, they couldn't connect to the emergency services, there's no connection. So, you know, you need to have the connectivity. You need to have very flexible connectivity, and 5G is very good at that. New technologies that are coming in here, they're going to make it easy to put campus type networks together to actually allow people to manage their usage, to slice and dice the you know, the ability to transmit. So things like Open RAN is a really interesting technology which takes you away from the sort of difficult and massive structures of fixed networks that we have at the moment, and actually frees that up. Great for students as well, but particularly for rural communities, we think. So that's one. And then using this technology, I would really point you to, you know, what I call the three great convergences here, which is connectivity, which is connecting everything. It's about everything being intelligent. So sensors. Look at the profusion of sensors. Really very important in agri-tech. I know you must have been exploring that, but also in city management and highway management, transport management. You know, sensors that allow you to know what's actually happening at all parts of it. And then the last piece of it, the last convergence, is analytics. And here you get into AI, you get into data management. Put all those three together and you have a smart society, a smart county, and a smart country.
So that's really great, because on Friday we're going to be looking at taking some of the learning from the 5G rural Dorset and applying that into an urban setting and seeing what the potential of that could be in Dorset. So a bit of something to look forward to there for us on Friday. We've been talking a lot this morning as well about the shortage of particular skills and roles, and you talked about connectivity, but obviously we need fibre engineers as well for that to happen. So we've been talking about new opportunities that we're putting in place to grow fibre engineers in particular. But we've got a real shortage of people in the sector, so we're trying to encourage people to come into the sector, but also for opportunities for businesses in this with this innovation and to grow. So, what do you think it takes to succeed as a digital innovator and entrepreneur in this space?
So first of all, an idea, and that. Everybody's got ideas, but people often don't sort of understand, well, how do I take that idea and make it? And you see really good examples of this where people in a particular industry are saying, I'm sure we could do that better. So take that idea. Then you're absolutely right, Lisa. The next thing is you've got to have skills, because you need to be able to develop a solution. Now, everybody thinks that's coding, but it's not. It's big. It's bigger than that. It's a whole panoply of skills, a lot of which are soft skills and team skills. And we've got a real challenge there. We still have not enough people feeling they can participate in the digital economy. We still have a situation where whole sections of society, and rural communities suffer from this a great deal, by the way. They just don't know anybody nearby. They haven't heard of anybody that's thinking about a tech career in any shape or form. And that's got to change. The demographics got to change. We're doing a little better on gender demographics, but we're really not very good as an industry on any of the other demographics that we need to address. And part of that problem is, opening the industry up a little bit more and making people understand it's about design as well as coding. It's about understanding how things work in the industry you're in, so you can apply the technology. Most technology projects that run into trouble is because people don't actually understand the business they're trying to apply it to. And then it's all about soft skills like teamwork. It's all about how you then continue to improve and innovate. It's not something you put down and that's it. It stays like that forever. So skills is an issue. Now at TechUK, we're actually looking at doing something to try and improve that. And we've actually started now providing credentials and accreditation on a broader basis. Started in universities, we're now expanding that. We'd be delighted to talk to people in Dorset about ways in which you could do that. Bring more people in and get them excited by this technology.
There's so much opportunity, isn't there? It's our imagination that will restrict us in terms of where we go next. Is this a good point to bring Matt and Georgina in and talk a little bit about the growth index work that you've been doing, Matt in particular?
Yes, yeah. I think we've been really excited by our local digital capital index and the engagement we've had, not just with members, but with councils, combined authorities, devolved government across the UK. I think that's testament to a real commitment to getting digital right. And we need to have these conversations with people like yourself, people who are attending FutureFest, because these are the people who are going to make the change.
So what does that growth index really mean? What's that telling us?
So what we're trying to assess is the strength of the local tech ecosystems across the UK. What we know and what we're seeing is that London has a really strong tech sector. That's a given. But what we need to know is what this looks like in different regions of the UK, where the strengths are and where the areas for development are. And that really helps us in two ways. It really helps us to have the conversation, to know what we can do and which companies, which members actually have an opportunity to work with local authorities and others to get things right locally. But the second area is in terms of levelling up, in terms of actually making sure we're delivering for people. And it is about people as well. I think you can think about this as UK PLC, but I really think it's most impactful when you think about it as Mr. and Mrs. Smith and how they're getting their prescription. Actually, it's about Mrs. Jones and what she does in terms of doing her shopping online. And it's about people who see a career in the tech sector, as Julian was saying. We need to make sure we're opening those doors, and we'll only do that if we understand the strength of different areas and start to baseline it.
I love that you said digital is all about people. It's the human aspects that enable digital transformation, isn't it? And it's not just the technology. So that's fantastic. Georgina, how could TechUK help businesses, small businesses in this space in particular?
Definitely. That you'll find often the small businesses, SMEs, they're our kind of disruptors and innovators. They're the ones key to helping us renew our local economies. I think about 2/3 of our members are SME, so we help them to access their networks, build those partnerships, whether that's across other public services or other prime system integrators, for example, because it's not often easy for them to enter the market, depending what their market is, if it's public sector, for example. So we will help facilitate that through our speed networking or various market engagements with public sector. So really giving them the opportunity to better understand their market. What are those problems that they're trying to solve? And as Julian says, helping them have that idea, but that idea that can help either deliver an outcome or solve a problem as well. So kind of through those market insights, but also by helping them build those relationships as well with future partners. Because I think, yeah, the best way you can do business really is by having those relationships.
Absolutely, and we've been talking a bit about that this morning in terms of the companies here today with us, and for people looking for jobs, it is about that network you build. That's fantastic. Julian, was there anything else that you wanted to end with?
Well, I think the back to this question about how do people get started, and looking at the role that local communities, and particularly the councils that lead those communities, can play. And it is, I think, as Matt said, get a good understanding of where your strengths and opportunities are. Build on the strengths, address the challenges. Make sure that you have got a consistent approach to this. Too often, as you probably know, Lisa, people leading communities say, "Oh, we're going to have a new agenda now because we're the new team," and that's not the best way to do this. You've got to have a consistent approach to this. You've got to address the market opportunities for small companies and big companies. You've got to address the funding issues. Often in the UK, we see that it's quite easy to start a digital business. You don't need a lot of capital. I'm sure your festival attendees, many of them run a small business, and they get on the cloud, and they're able to do things, and they can bring products. But then when they try and scale, they try and employ more people, they try and get to different markets. That's when they run into problems. So funding is very important. It's very important as well for the council to be proactive in promoting Dorset and Dorset businesses around the rest of the country, and I would say around the world. One of the things that we do focus on in TechUK is international trade. If you're a tech business and you're not global, you're not going global, you're going out of business, is what I would say. So you really got to have that mindset that says, we've got this great idea, we've managed to make it work. There's no reason why that wouldn't work everywhere, or at least a large part of everywhere. So let's go. Where's the next place? Maybe that's Somerset, but then don't stop there. Let's carry on.
That's brilliant. I mean, in the pandemic, we saw a lot of businesses, didn't we, start to adopt digital that hadn't before. And
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple of companies for the festival, and they've talked about exactly that, how that's helped them reach new markets now and grow their business. So they hadn't even anticipated that when they were just responding to the pandemic. So,
but then come on, council, you've got to support these people now. If they need planning permission for an extra space or or whatever it is, get it to them, get it there quickly, get things moving, make the connections to the rest of the country, join organisations like us. That doesn't just have to be TechUK, but be present in broader community and sing your story as a company, as an innovator, and the Dorset story at the same time. Why not?
well, we're now going to go on to talk about the facilities on the Innovation Park and exactly how we can support businesses here on the park. So that was a really nice lead into that, Julian. So thank you so much for joining the festival. We really appreciate having you, Georgina, and Matt here. So thank you so much for your time. And we're going to go back to the studio now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the sofa for the final session this morning of day 3 of the festival. I've got with me 2 new guests. I've got Tony and Matt, and we're going to be addressing ourselves to that question of, is Dorset a good place to do digital business? Tony, let me come to you first.
Is Dorset a good place to do business? Yes, is the answer to that question. every council in the world is looking to attract these sorts of employers, jobs and businesses. And so what Dorset has to do is to identify those areas where it is really genuinely better and different to the other offers out there. And what Dorset does particularly well is to bring together what we've done here in the Battle Lab, which is leading edge 5G technology, but at the same time map it onto Dorset's traditional strengths and knowledges, particularly in this case the Battle Lab with the Ministry of Defence's military infrastructure in the county, with all of the ranges and the Marines and all of the other facilities that are there. And what we've brought together is the old traditional skills of that niche and the new leading edge skills that the technology brings. And the third piece in the jigsaw that you need is a council that puts their money and their backing behind that. And that's what we've done in the park here and in Dorset as a whole.
Thanks. And we've heard from some really great businesses this morning. Again, just welcome your reflection on what you've heard about the exciting opportunities that our businesses are bringing by way of investment.
Every time I come to one of these events, I get more excited. I mean, there's great stuff that goes on, all these sorts of things. I was really taken by the dog and looking at the design of it and what length its legs is, so what steps it can get up. I mean, I just love some of the technology that's emerging. And I don't know what the commercial applications are going to be of these things, because that's not the world we're in. But the niches that we're exploring are just fantastic and really interesting to look at.
And Matt, we've been talking this morning about skills. Obviously, you're working at Bmth University and looking at how we can really make sure that all the good things and the research that goes on in the university turns themselves into good quality jobs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really beautifully hidden secret that Bournemouth and Dorset has got that I don't think we talk about quite enough. It's been enabled by the universities, not just Bournemouth University, but Arts University as well. There are 35 technology platform startups in and around Bournemouth and Dorset. 35 funded technology companies that are at the cutting edge of the digital revolution. We don't hear about them enough, but they are testament to what a great place Dorset is to do this business. And they are being fed the talent through the universities, and it's creating this wonderful little ecosystem that is growing, and it's growing exponentially. You know, the more and more that the last 2 or 3 years and the impact that this terrible pandemic's had on everyone, and the changing way in which we've all rapidly adopted to digital technologies, young and old alike. You know, Bournemouth and Dorset is poised to be a great place to really benefit from all of those things.
Thank you. And when I joined the council back in the start of Dorset Council on the 1st of April 2019, I said, the council told me, John, there's no motorways in Dorset. And I said, okay, so what's the wish? Is it to have one? But I think I've now got very clearly understood, Tony, your point made earlier about 5G, that in a county like ours, it's very much the digital superhighway that's important to our economic success.
Absolutely. And I mean, to follow on from, we in Bournemouth and Dorset are generating a huge pool of skilled, talented individuals. And what we need to do is to bring that group of people together with the employers to create that thermal, that confluence of ideas and skills that's going to bring long-term employment, long-term wealth, long-term careers to the county.
Thanks, Tony. And Matt, we had Tony talked about the businesses we've had this morning. We've heard some really, really fascinating Dorset businesses this morning about the exciting things that we're doing. But the other thing that was very striking was had our young people with us. That future. Now, obviously, you're going to be, I hope, bringing some of those young people that we met this morning into courses in the university. But again, what's the vision? What do you think we could really achieve?
So, if you think about Bournemouth University, we've got the National Centre for Computer Animation based at Bournemouth University, and this is attracting young people from all over the world. In fact, you know, of the international applications that come in for that are phenomenal, and so that's creating this a talent pool of excited young people who are gifted in computer animation and virtual reality. So we saw the guys with their virtual reality headsets on earlier. The people coming out of the universities are the ones that are creating those exciting virtual worlds. And the fact that we've got this 5G network all around Dorset, and that the council here are thinking about that as the future. We've got that wonderful test bed, as evidenced here by the Battle Lab, to bring those worlds together of the games, the technology, the virtual reality, 5G and the internet, and the broadband. And the young people, because clearly I'm not one of them, young people see the world in an entirely different way to you and I. You know, and actually we've got to harness that. We've got to give them room to play with these things. Get them involved in events like today or this week. Get them involved in going and meeting with the companies. I do a bit of work for an organisation called the British Interactive Media Association. And each November they organise a thing called Digital Day, where we go out into schools and we get the local creative and digital agencies to go into schools, work with those young people, and show them what a future career might be in digital. Hopefully to get them to come to a university like Bmth University, but equally to show them what the possibilities are. And this year we're BMA telling me that Dorset is going to have more schools involved than anywhere else in the country. So there's a real excitement in the air. There's a great way for the young people to get involved.
And thanks, Matt. Building on that thought, Tony, I mean, we've been discussing a lot this morning, the way in which the world is changing, the way in which technology's changed. A number of us have been reflecting over the course, even our own lifetimes, of how things have moved on quite rapidly. Again, just welcome your thoughts on that future and what it might look like and the opportunities.
Well, if Mark's not young, I'm definitely old. And so from my perspective, this is an old man's opinion. What my view is, what the council has to do is to build the infrastructure, build the facilities, build the capability, and then stand out the way. Because what we need to do is to enable people to deliver what they can do with their skills and their technology, and we'll try not to interfere.
Yeah, allow our businesses to flourish. And I think we certainly got a very powerful sense of that this morning, that we've got some businesses in Dorset that have got a really, really strong growth ambition, and using that digital technology, making sure that we build the skills in our young people and indeed more broadly to make sure we really take the advantage of that. Again, Matt, just welcome you about kind of the economic impact of that longer term.
Well, so in Bournemouth, it's in wider Bournemouth and Dorset. We've got 3 international independent networked agencies that between them employ over 3,000 people. These are small collections of independent, small creative digital agencies that network together to create something bigger. And I think that's what the future is going to look like. We're going to see lots of much smaller niche businesses working in spaces like this, or working out in rural places, because their connectivity is via a screen now. We don't need necessarily to be in a physical presence with someone. So actually there is a wonderful way in which the future and places like Dorset are going to be built for that.
Brilliant, that's a great note to end on. Thank you ever so much. Can I thank my 2 guests for their contribution this morning, for closing so powerfully day 3 of the festival. I think we're now going to invite in the colleagues that we've still got with us. We've got 1 or 2 who are still with us in the room. I hope you're all still alive and plugged in online as well. But really my opportunity to say thank you very much, particularly to the Battle Lab for hosting us this morning, to our wonderful production team who've waved at me from the gallery on a couple of occasions, which is good, but occasionally put me in the right place at the right time, which is good. To everybody who's been involved in the festival, in particular, I'd say there's another day of the festival tomorrow, so make sure you're tuned in, and for those that wish to, do come down and enjoy it. So we close out on that note, a really exciting day to look at technology for a really exciting digital future, and a great opportunity to grow the economy of Dorset. Thank you for tuning in.